So good morning. I'm just doing a time check that it's about 10:02, and we are awaiting the commissioners joining us. If there is any member of the public who wishes to comment on any of the items today, if you would please press *6 to raise your hand and *9 to request to unmute.
Hello, this is Chris Spitz of Pacific Palisades Community Council. I wish to comment on item 4. I don't know if I need to take any other steps.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your name, please?
Christina Spitz of Pacific Palisades Community Council. We wish to comment on item 4.
Thank you, Christina. I have you down for item number 4. So when we call on public speakers for item number 4, if you would please unmute yourself, request to unmute yourself at that time.
Should I push *6 again now and then *6 again at that point? I don't know how to mute myself at this point.
*9. *6 is to raise your hand.
Oh, okay. So *9 so I should push that now to basically go back.
No, it's *6 for mute and unmute. You alternate back and forth. It's *9 to raise your hand.
Okay, thank you. I'll mute myself now.
This is Barry Johnson with the Studio City Residents Association, and I also want to speak on item number 4.
Thank you, Barry.
Thanks.
Yes, hello? Hello?
Yes.
My name's Ron Bitzer, B-I-T, Z as in zebra, E-R, Laurel Grove Neighborhood Association, North Hollywood, on the Transit Amenities Program, 0766.
Got it, Mr. Bitzer. Thank you.
Good morning. Should we all give our names and affiliations for which items we'd like to speak on now, or should we just raise our hand when we'd like to speak on that item later on?
No, I have to record who's going to be speaking on each item now for the record at the beginning of the meeting. So if you could identify your name and what item you want to speak on, sir.
Great. My name is Michael Shillstone with the Central City Association, and I'd like to speak on item 4, please.
Would you spell your last name, Mr. Shillstone?
Sure. S-H-I-L-S-T-O-N-E.
Thank you.
My name is Patrick Frank, and I would like to speak on item 4.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
I am from scenic Los Angeles.
Great.
Hello, Elise Swanson, San Pedro Chamber. I would like to speak on item 4.
And would you spell your first and last name, please, Lee?
E-L-I-S-E-S-W-A-N-S-O-N.
Thank you, Elise.
Good morning, Dr. Tom Williams, or Dr. Clyde T. Williams, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. I would like to speak on item 4 and item 8. Also, I would like to request a general public comment period be included in all future spatial agenda items. Thank you.
Dr. Williams, I have you down as requesting speaker cards on, or a speaker comment on items 4 and 8, and also on public comments. Is that accurate?
Hello, this is Robin Greenberg. Hello, this is Robin Greenberg. Can you hear me?
Hi, Robin. Yes, I can.
I would like to speak on item number 4.
Would you please spell your last name, Robin?
Greenberg.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, and I'd like to confirm that my
Good morning, Adel.
audio
Good morning, Martin.
got fixed. Working?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we can see you now.
I had to change computers, but I think I'm good to go now.
Excellent.
Morning, Martin. Morning, Adel.
Good morning, everyone. We'll start the meeting in about 2 minutes. Can I just ask that President Pro Tem Davis test his audio? And I see that his video camera is off. If you would please attend via video if possible.
Okay, I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. I told him I would be just a few minutes late this morning. Sorry about that.
No, that's excellent. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so it sounds as though, Commissioner Villegas, would you mind testing it looks as though your video is off as well.
Good morning, I'm here. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And Commissioner Colosa, please.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. I am going to...
How do I register for public comment?
You would give me your name and what item, or I'm sorry, you want to make a public comment?
This is John H. Wellborn, W-E-L-B-O-R-N-E, and I want to comment on number 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
My name is Rudy Melendez. I'm a stakeholder. I'd like to make public comment on agenda item number 4. Thank you.
Let me just verify would you please spell your last name, Mr. Melendez?
M like Mary, E like electric, L like Larry, E like electric, N like Nancy, D like David, E like electric, Z like zebra. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as soon as the president is ready, we can go ahead and start the meeting. All right, let's get going. Okay. And we are good. We are recording.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special meeting of the Los Angeles City Board of Public Works for Tuesday, November 24, 2020. Good morning, Mr. Knight.
Good morning, President Good. President Good, Vice President Garcia, President Pro Tem Davis, Commissioners Colosa and Villegas are present. We do have a quorum. We are also joined by City Attorney Representative Mr. Chad Jordan. My name is Assistant Executive Officer TJ Knight. We do have one speaker card under public comment. We have no neighborhood council commentary, and we have a number of speaker cards under item 4 and one under item 8.
All right. Well, good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Mr. Jordan. Good morning, members of the community, and obviously from our bureaus, et cetera, joining us this morning. TJ, why don't we go ahead and hear from public comment as a starting point?
Excellent. Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, if you would please press star.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is this for general public comments or for
Yes.
item 4?
Yes, we're in general public comments at this time.
There is no agenda item specific to general comments. So I'd highly recommend that you change your future agendas to include specifically general public comments. By general public comments is that several items that have been considered involve operations within the LA 32 Neighborhood Council area, and we're never informed as to when it's going to come and who's going to do it and what's going on. So we're quite concerned about public works operations within the neighborhood council area of LA 32 and being notified in a timely fashion so that we can either help or at least inform our stakeholders as to what's going on in our area. So please, in the future, notify neighborhood councils citywide as to what's going to happen and when it's going to happen within their areas. You have the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment upstairs that could help you greatly notifying them. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Williams. All right. So no commentary from on no additional general public comment. Okay. All right, folks. As a starting point, Mr. Knight, I want you. We're going to continue item number 5. This is a contract award to United Construction and Landscape, Inc. We will continue that to Tuesday, December 1st.
Item number 5, we'll make a note of continuing that to next Tuesday, December 1st. Thank you. That's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Nasser, for and Patty and crew for being here. Let you know early, okay? Victor, thank you. So we're here next Tuesday.
Thank you.
You're obviously welcome to stay, but otherwise have good Thanksgivings.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Happy Thanksgiving, yes, to all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, let's go back, colleagues, to item number 1. Item number 1 is the minutes from Friday, November 13, 2020. Do I have a second to my motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Any objections, President Pro Tem Davis, Commissioner Villegas, or Commissioner Colosa?
No objections from me.
No objections for me either, thank you.
None, thank you.
All right, hearing no objections, the minutes from Friday, November 13, 2020 are approved forthwith. Let's take that to item number 2. Item number 2 is CDs 3, 5, and 6. This is a memorandum of agreement, LA County Flood Control District, Los Angeles Riverway, San Fernando Valley Completion Project. Recommending the board, 1, approve the proposed use agreement between the City of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles County Flood Control District for the construction, development, operation, and maintenance of improvements to be built within the portions of fee and easement interests of the district. And 2, delegate signature authority to the city engineer to execute the use agreement between the city and the district and make any technical corrections or clarifications to the above items. Stephen Pierce is with us this morning. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning. Yes, so for some background on the project, the full project scope includes the development of approximately 3 miles of bikeway and greenway along the Los Angeles River from Van Allen Avenue to West Balboa Boulevard to the east, which spans across council districts numbers 3, 5, and 6, as well as offsite improvements, which create linkages to the Los Angeles River corridor. The improvements will also include crossings, under-street bridges, pedestrian walking paths, landscape fencing, lighting, signage, site furnishings, and educational and interpretive elements. To date, 3 segments of an overall 51-mile development plan have been completed, totaling 3.3 miles, and this use agreement is to address an additional 3 miles. The portion of land between Van Allen Avenue and White Oak Avenue is owned in fee by the district, and the portion between White Oak Avenue and Balboa Boulevard is owned by the Army Corps of Engineers in fee. As such, this agreement is only focused on the land owned by the district, which is from Van Allen to Balboa Boulevard. So the agreement dictates scope, use, and maintenance requirements, and a similar use agreement has been executed for Phase 1, which was the first 3.3 miles completed. This portion of the project is estimated to be completed in 2025, and we estimate approximately $80,000 to $100,000 annual maintenance costs, which will be shared between LADOT, RAP, and the Bureau of Street Lighting together. With the board approval, this agreement would be signed by the city attorney and city engineer, and the mayor's signature is not required. The city engineer recommendation is the district has entered into this use agreement with the city on previous projects along the river on portions where the district owns fee and easement interests, and the city proposes to operate and maintain the improvements. Funding for the maintenance of this project will be identified at a future time, and the source of funds will have to be identified in the future. With that, if you have any questions, open it up.
Thank you, Mr. Fierce. Appreciate that. Colleagues, let's start off with Vice President Garcia. Any questions or comments?
Good morning, President Good. No, I do not have any questions or comments. I was briefed on this earlier. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis.
Yes, Steve, I wanted to ask, what is the process that we use when we have these kinds of projects that we project future funding? Do we explore potential funding from funding mechanisms from the state and federal government, as well as perhaps are there any nonprofit infrastructure funding opportunities? What is the general conceptual framework that we use when we have projects like this, for which we don't currently have the funding, but we certainly will, as we've done with other projects, get the funding? What's the concept in terms of how we proceed in that effort?
I asked Nur Balance, the project manager, to be on the call with me this morning. I think he would be best suited to address that comment. Nur, can you address that comment?
Yes. Hello. My name is Nur. I'm from the Bureau of Engineering, Architectural Division. In terms of, all of the above, in terms of the funding sources that we could identify, in the past we've identified CIEP funds that we've asked as part of a request to fund maintenance. Sometimes depending on who maintains the actual improvements, it could be taken from Quimby funds if RAP maintains it. But in regards to finding additional funding sources, it's really all of the above. It's all of the above. It just depends on how fortunate one is to obtain the funding and if it gets approved. But it could come from a variety of sources. Typically, a lot of grant applications, from what I've worked on in the past, they don't usually fund maintenance. Some of them, but a lot of the federal ones that I've worked with do not. So it's usually other types of local funds that we try to use.
Okay, wonderful. And so the task in terms of our operation for responsibility for identifying the funds comes from the project managers, or is it from our grant writers, or a combination therein of both?
It's a combination. To identify the funding, we work with our council offices to collaborate and put our heads together to see where we can get the funding from. We identify, the maintenance cost per year, and then we work with them to see where we can get this funding and what source it will come from.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Fierce. Just a quick question. Has the county already approved this agreement?
Yes, they've approved the provisions of this agreement. What's next is us signing it, and then we send it back to them. So this has been a discussion with them and the city attorney, and their county council. And these are pretty much the final provisions that you see here in this transmittal. And then once we get approval from the board, we could sign it.
All right, thank you very much. That was all.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Commissioner Closa.
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any questions. Mr. Pierce and his team briefed me on this.
Okay, great. Thank you. Quick question, Mr. Pearson and Nur, does this agreement does it sort of exist in perpetuity? So let's say, for example, that, at the risk of being master of the obvious, we're in a slightly precarious financial state right now, and let's say it proves more difficult to find the funding. To Mike's question, or Dr. Davis's question, than we anticipate, does this agreement just sort of stay on the shelf, for lack of a better way to put it, until we get to a place where there's adequate funding to actually move forward in the project itself, or projects?
Well, with this, in regards to the funding, this use agreement itself, stipulates certain maintenance that the city would have to do, and then as long as we come up with a plan of action, roles and responsibilities of who does the maintenance. For instance, LA DOT will do maintenance of the actual pavement and striping. Street lighting will do the street lights, so on and so forth. We could identify funding while we're in construction because they won't start doing the maintenance until the end of construction, which is stipulated until 2025. But as long as we have an operation and maintenance agreement in terms of roles and responsibilities with these agencies, we'll be good to go out before construction. I'm not sure, you were breaking up a little bit. I don't know if I answered your question.
I'm just wondering if short of having funding for construction and starting that up, does the agreement just stand for a while? I mean, it's on the shelf until it comes into play?
Oh, okay. So if, let's say hypothetically, this project, we can't get funded and we have to delay the construction start date. This agreement will last for a number of years after it gets executed. So we'll still have this agreement in place.
Okay.
So even if we don't start it, it's a long agreement. It's a long-term agreement.
That answers my question. All right, I appreciate that. All right. Do I have a motion to move this item forward? Thank you, Commissioner Colosa. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I got 2 seconds. Commissioner Villegas and Vice President Garcia. Any objections or questions? President Pro Tem Davis. President Pro Tem Davis, you there?
Oh, no questions.
Thank you. All right, hearing no objections, we have a motion from Commissioner Colosa to move this forward, seconded by Commissioners Villegas and Vice President Garcia, and the item is approved forthwith. Thank you very much, Stephen and Nur. Y'all have a great holiday, if we don't see you. Okay, colleagues, let's go to item number 3. Item number 3 is from the Bureau of Sanitation. It is CDs 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, and 13. It's a grant application. State Water Resources Control Board, Prop 1 Stormwater Grant Program, Bayona Creek Low Flow Treatment Facility 1, Bacteria Total Maximum Daily Loads Project. Sanitation always comes up with elegant names for projects. Recommending the board, 1, approve and forward this report with its transmittal to the City Council and Mayor with the recommendation that the City Council, subject to concurrence of the Mayor, authorize the Director of the Bureau of Sanitation or designee to apply for, negotiate, accept, execute, and submit all documents, including but not limited to applications, agreements, amendments, and payment requests, etc., subject to the approval of the City Attorney as to form, which may be necessary to secure grants for the Bayona Creek Low Flow Treatment Facility Number 1 Bacteria Total Maximum Daily Loads Project from the State Water Resources Control Board's Proposition 1 Stormwater Grant Program Round 2, and 2, request that the City Council, subject to the concurrence of the Mayor, adopt the accompanying authorizing resolution. Rowena Lau is with us from Sanitation. Good morning, Ms. Lau.
Good morning. My name is Rowena Lau from LA Sanitation and Environment, Centralized Grants Unit. I'm here today with the project manager, Brett Perry, and LA Sanitation is requesting the board's approval to apply, negotiate, accept, and execute a grant with the State Water Resources Control Board, Proposition 1 Stormwater Grant Program for the Bayona Creek Low Flow Treatment Facility Number 1 Bacteria Total Maximum Daily Limit Project. This project is a regional watershed-wide water quality improvement project designed to perform a combination of a treat and release and a water diversion functions during dry weather conditions in the Ballona Creek watershed. The project is one of 3 key regional projects, the other 2 being the Sepulvedal Channel Low-Flow Treatment Facility number 2 and the Mesmer Pump Station project. Together, these are a collaborative effort between 5 cities in the Ballona Creek watershed, along with the County of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles County Flood Control District, with the goal to achieve attainment of the dry weather bacteria total maximum daily limit for the Ballona Creek. This project will achieve this goal by building a new low-flow treatment facility that will capture, disinfect, and divert polluted flows to protect the Ballona estuary and the wetlands downstream. This comprehensive project provides multiple benefits to the region's water supply, water quality, natural environment, and even the local community and their recreational activities. Without the implementation of any of these 3 projects, the city risks enforcement actions by the Regional Water Quality Control Board and also potential fines. This may also impair the city's position as an environmental steward in the region. The total budget for this project is $25 million. LASAN has applied for a maximum allowable amount of $10 million, which is approximately 40% of the project cost. The grants receivable, if awarded, will be on a reimbursement basis. In addition, the project is also working on other funding sources such as Measure W, the Safe Clean Water Regional, as well as the municipal funds, since this project has both a local and regional impact on water quality. And this concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lau. Questions, Vice President Garcia.
Thank you, President Good. Rowena, did you say that we applied already? This has been submitted?
Yes, so we submitted the application on July 1st. And so right now we are waiting for the results, as well as we are required to provide a resolution approved prior to getting awarded.
Oh, so we are going to be awarded?
That's not sure, but in order to be awarded, we have to have board council approval.
I see. Okay. And so this is your first step, and then you'll go to council, and then you'll submit, and then we'll be in line to hopefully be awarded. And if that happens, when is that projected to happen?
Right now, it's projected to have a decision by the end of this year, so most likely next month.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty a fast turnaround. Okay, those were my questions. Thank you, President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Rowena. Wanted to understand better our position on this project. You mentioned that there are other stakeholders that are a part of this project, and it includes the city of Los Angeles and several other cities that are in this region. Do you know who the other stakeholders are other than the city of Los Angeles?
Let me divert this to Brett Perry, the project manager, to answer the question.
Right.
Brett?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So the other cities that are partnering on this project with us are the city of West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Inglewood, and Culver City, along with the city of Los Angeles, county of Los Angeles, and the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. Those are the 7 major agencies collaborating.
Sure. When it gets to the financial accountability in terms of creating and contributing to resources to solve problems, in this particular motion before us, is there a formula of our percentage? What is our level of accountability financially as a city in this stakeholder partnership?
Absolutely. For the overall project cost, as a group, we're pursuing outside funding sources, first off from the Safe Clean Water Program, Measure W, and grants. However, the way that costs have been preliminary discussed and used for other watershed projects is based on drainage area of each city's land area within the project's drainage area. So for the city of Los Angeles, we actually make up the vast majority of the drainage area of this project. I believe it's close to 80%. So it's the vast majority, and all of our other partners would make up about 20%.
So we pay apportionately according to the input of our portion of the project in terms of our drainage area, which is 80%. So we pay 80% of the project cost on projects similar to this. Good. Now, the other thing, thank you. You also mentioned that we have several tools that we are implementing on this project. Now, we have had a need to get resources to be able to implement this. When did we discover that we needed to put this particular effort together as a solution in that area?
Absolutely. So this project dates back to when the bacteria TMDL was assigned to our watershed, which I believe was in 2008, but became enforceable with the approval of the 2012 MS4 permit. However, this specific project is really being driven by a time schedule order that we received in 2015, as we had yet to meet the dry weather requirements of those TMDLs. So when we applied for that time schedule order, this project was outlined as how our agencies would achieve the TMDL requirements under the MS4 permit. And so that really has been the driver of this project since 2015.
So prior to 15 and the gap years that you mentioned earlier, what were we doing as a tool for solutions to the bacteria problem that we confront in the area?
Absolutely. And so previous MS4 permits had outlined a number of other measures that our entire department worked on to reduce both the amount of pollutants in any kind of dry or wet weather runoff and efforts to reduce the amount of dry weather runoff in the Biona Creek. However, it also, due to the sampling outlines, the sampling requirements through the MS4 permit, we still were not meeting the criteria. And so that's what drove the specificity of the time schedule order and outlining exactly what these projects are needed.
So heretofore, we did have a solution, but in fact, after we tested the validity of that solution, it was not reliable as an effective tool to manage it at this point. Is that correct?
And these are speaking to many years of efforts that I believe that the efforts outlined are a slow implementation process of, for instance, low impact development throughout the city, trying to reduce the dry weather and wet weather sources throughout the city. So it was a matter of the timeline, I would say, that it was effective. However, there have always been funding issues associated with stormwater and water quality. And so it really, the time schedule order is what gave us this urgency to build such a large low flow treatment facility in the receiving water body itself in order to achieve the critical water quality standards that we need to.
Sure. So I do understand the urgency of this problem, and I just wanted to have a better, more comprehensive operational challenge that we have in addressing this problem. So thank you so very much for your answers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Thank you, Brett. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you, and thank you, Brett, for that explanation and for answering Commissioner Davis's questions. I hope that you were able to give a lot more context for Commissioner Davis, for those of us who have been in these trenches for the last 10 years. The cities that you mentioned, are those cities from the EWIMPs, from the Enhanced Watershed Management Plans?
Yes, exactly. There's the same overlap between the Biona Creek Enhanced Watershed Management Plan and our partners in this project, yes. Okay. I believe in the EWIMP, we also collaborate with Caltrans and the city of Santa Monica, but they're not in this specific drainage area. So, okay. But yes.
And do you know about, just an estimation, how much you'd be requesting from Measure W funds for the local return?
Unfortunately, I can't speak to the plans on the municipal side. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, once you, figure that piece out, just send me an email. That would be fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not, I was just thinking maybe you guys had some prospectus or something like that on the finance piece for this project. I have no more questions. Thank you.
I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Close, but just one follow-up question on Commissioner Villegas' question. Would this be limited to, I mean, obviously it's all speculative because among other things, you're going to apply for money from the State Water Resources Control Board, but in terms of Measure W, would it be limited to local return, or given that this is a collaborative watershed project, would this also not be one, and Teresa, and obviously you're hyper aware on this as well, would this not also be eligible for as a regional project?
So we are applying for a regional, the regional portion for the project, sort of like the front funding. But as we're waiting for that, our second option would be the municipal. So both are eligible. So it just depends on which one has funding. And then, of course, if we're able to get either regional or municipal and is able to get this grant, then it'll reimburse a portion of that cost.
Got it.
Absolutely. And one more note, we have applied into round 2 of the regional program for Deep Clean Water for $15 million. So, and that's the regional portion there.
Which would cover a big chunk of this. Yeah, got it. Okay. Commissioner Closa.
Thank you, President Byrd. I appreciate the questions from my colleagues about the funding. I had a few follow-up questions from Ms. Lau about just kind of the timeline of this all. So when did we know about this grant opportunity?
Let me take a look. So we applied for this we applied for it in July, and then I believe that it was available it was available, I think, about maybe about 2 months before that, so maybe around May. But the issue was we didn't really, sanitation itself, we didn't know about the grant yet. And so by the time we found out, it was already really close to the deadline. And so we applied using the Council File 110527 that authorized sanitation to apply for grant funding for environmental programs. That's what we used as the authority to apply during that time frame.
Right, but is this an annual grant? Just to clarify for my awareness.
This is not an annual grant. This is its second round. It has a total of $10 million. So generally, these types of proposition programs, they'll designate like a specific amount, and then depending on how many projects they're able to award, they will, if there's leftover, they'll move to round 2. And so if round 2 they can't select enough projects, or some of the projects fall through, there may be a round 3. So it depends on what are the requirements of that proposition and how that funding can be used.
I see. I think, this is just a point I wanted to think about process that I think I've made in past items for grant applications that LA-SAN has brought before the board. But, you're seeking approval from us 5 months after you submitted the application. And, that's not something that, we like to see in general, whether it's the street closure, happening on the day of the actual closure request, or you're requesting authority from us after the fact. We've made this point before, but I really want to reiterate it again. I appreciate LA-SAN chasing grant dollars, and that's so important. But I did just want to, make a note of that we really want to see these, as much as possible before you apply. So that's, something I would like to, make sure I reiterate to you, Mr. Perry, and to you, Ms. Lau, that, that as much as possible, that's just a process that, we hope is respected, that, the authority comes from the Board of Public Works and City Council. And that's really just a point I wanted to make. And a second question that I have is, how confident are you that we're going to receive this grant, and was there any costs to the city to actually apply?
There's no cost for the city to apply other than our own staffing costs for the time we did the application. In terms of we believe that we did a fairly good application, and our application provides a lot of multi-benefits for a whole region. So we feel that, there's a high probability that we may be able to get this grant, but of course, at this current situation, a lot of other municipalities are also applying, so it's hard to tell. We have been following up with the granting agency and haven't received any additional requests for information. So in that perspective, I think we're in pretty decent standing.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, President Good.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Calosa. Just a couple of quick follow-up. We're actually one follow-up question and one comment. I do want to echo Commissioner Calosa in terms of making sure to bring these to us in a timely fashion. Again, the entrepreneurial spirit of all of our bureaus is lauded, applauded, and embraced. That said, it is 5 months is a long time for us just to be seeing it, as I'm sure you all recognize. Second, which is just a question, where geographically would this project actually be?
Brett? So this project is located along the Biona Creek main stem. It's actually located in the city of Culver City on property of the city of Los Angeles. We're actually retrofitting an abandoned infrastructure parcel. But it's along the waterway. It'll have a diversion structure in the channel, which then diverts the water into our parcel of land to be treated or sent into the sewer.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Perry and Ms. Lau. With that, I will motion to move this forward. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Any objections, Vice President Garcia?
No objections.
Okay. President Pro Tem Davis?
No objections.
Sir, Commissioner Calosa?
No objections.
All right. Hearing no objections, the item is approved forthwith. Thank you so much, Ms. Lau. Thank you, Mr. Perry. You'll have a great Thanksgiving. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Good luck with the grant. Let's get the money.
Thanks.
Okay. Colleagues, we're going to hold on item 4 and move to item 6. Item number 6 is an authority for expenditure. State of California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Bureau of Engineering and the Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $27,152.50 for permit fees for the Department of Fish and Wildlife for the LA Riverway San Fernando Valley Completion Project. NER is back with us to present on this item. Good morning again.
Good morning. So this item is a authority for expenditure in the amount of $27,152 to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And the reason for this is this project contains, it's a bike path from Benelden to Balboa, and it contains undercrossings under street bridges. And in order to construct the undercrossing, you would need to rest equipment in the actual channel bed, the invert of the channel. And for us to do that, we're also diverting water to create a dry area. And for us to divert water, we have to, it triggers a Department of Fish and Wildlife permit because we're resting on the stream bed. So the way they look at it, we have 5 different undercrossings, and each project is considered one fee, so we have to pay that fee of $5,430 times 5 in order for us to construct these undercrossings and to be able to have equipment in the invert of the channel. So these fees are application fees as part of our Department of Fish and Wildlife application. And this is needed in order for them to review and issue us a permit.
Okay, thank you, Nur. Can I get any questions, colleagues? We'll start with you, Commissioner Calosa.
No questions for me, thank you.
Okay. Any questions, President Pro Tem Davis?
None for me, President.
Any questions, Vice President Garcia?
I have no questions, but I'm aware that this is needed, so I fully support this moving forward. So, something we have to do anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. And Commissioner Villegas?
I have no questions either. I just know this section of the LA River, and we need a connection there. So it's a good project. It's been so long in the making.
Terrific. Okay. I have no further questions either. So do I have a motion to move this item forward?
So moved.
Thank you, Pro Tem Davis. Second from Vice President Garcia. Any objections or concerns, Commissioners Villegas or Pelosi?
None.
All right.
No concerns from me either. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing no objections, the item is approved forthwith. Thank you, Nerva, very much. And then that brings us to, let's go to item number 7. For folks online, I think there's quite a few. I want to be, we obviously on item 4 we have a lot of callers, and we're going to have a robust conversation, I suspect. And so rather than, I want to just get all the other items taken care of so that we have plenty of time for item number 4. So please be patient for those of you waiting for item number 4. I appreciate your patience very much. Item number 7. This is also an authority for expenditure for the Redeemer Community Partnership. Bureau of Street Services and Office of Accounting are requesting board approval and execution of an authority for expenditure in the amount of $20,000 to pay for the planning, outreach, and research services for the Normandy Beautiful Specific Streetscape Project. Authorize the President or 2 members of the Board of Public Works to execute the contract after approval as the form has been obtained from the city attorney. Rose is with us today to present on this item. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner Good and Commissioners of the Board of Public Works. This is an authority for expenditure for $20,000, and it's basically for the preliminary planning, bilingual outreach, and to the community for the Normandy Beautiful Streetscape Project. This is a $1 million project funded by CRA Excess Bond Funds in Council District 8. Streets LA will be creating a streetscape and pedestrian improvement project that also incorporates space for the community to safely walk, bike, and drive. The vendor is a nonprofit organization that will develop a strategy and design educational materials for the project, conduct meetings, do research, and provide data to help with the design of this project. There is also an LOA and a proposal attached. I also have Anna Tabuena Ruddy available if you have any questions on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, we'll start with Vice President Garcia. Any questions or comments?
Sure. Thank you, President Good. I do have a question. Obviously, I'm very happy, and these are projects that I always fully support. Is there already a vision for this? Has something been rendered, or we're just starting the process?
This is just the beginning of the process. We're starting the design at this point once we get the information from this vendor.
From what vendor? I'm sorry.
The name of the vendor is Redeemer. This is an A&P for Redeemer Community Partnership, and we're partnering with them to get some information so that we can start the design. So it's at the preliminary stages of the project.
Okay. Is Redeemer the nonprofit you spoke about?
Yes, that's correct. Redeemer Community Partnership is the vendor that, we work with CD8 to develop get a proposal from the vendor and to create this AFE so that we can start the process.
Okay. I guess what I want to say is once there's some kind of rendering for it, is it possible that we can see it just to see what kind of vision is out there. And then I know it's saying Normandy beautification, but what area specifically? It's CD8, right? We're talking about.
Yes, it's CD8, and it is on Normandy Avenue. Anna's available for those additional details. I'm not really sure what the cross street is, but it's in CD8. And it's on Normandy Avenue. Don't have a cross street.
Okay.
It's on Normandy. This is Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, it's on Normandy between Jefferson and Adams.
Okay. That's better. Okay. Once this is done, you think you'll have, when do you think you'll have some kind of a, some visual to what you're planning to do there?
We have some visuals right now, so we can provide some as part of the preliminary planning.
Maybe when you can send that to me via email if possible.
Definitely.
Thank you. That's all for me. For now. Thank you.
I'd like to see that too, by the way, when y'all send those out. Okay, so President Pro Tem Davis.
Yeah, thank you. So we're working with the Council District 8 on the streetscape project.
Yes, we're working very closely with Council District 8
Okay.
and Redeemer.
Okay, are the neighborhood associations a part of the process for which we are getting ideas and communicating on this? And did the project principals, Redeemer, present proposals to the neighborhood association or the block clubs or whatever they are called? Are they a part of the input in terms of what is being developed along with the council office in the area, or do you have knowledge of that?
So through Redeemer, they've reached out to various groups within the area, and they've had community meetings.
Okay, wonderful. So that they then have a rendering that the neighborhood associations have bought into and have selected based upon what they've presented. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, they've had actual community meetings as well as virtual community meetings once the stay-at-home orders went in place.
Sure. Now, in this streetscape, what do we anticipate the timeline being in terms of implementation of what the neighbors have selected?
So we are thinking about starting in 2021, 22.
Okay. And you said, how long will the duration of the project be? Is it a year project? Is it perhaps a 6-month project? Or what do we anticipate the time period will be for implementing this proposal?
So there'll be additional community outreach and design to be done for maybe a year or two, and then following that would be construction.
Okay, wonderful. And so in terms of the construction, is it projected, and I know we never know in construction for real, but in terms of planning, do we anticipate that this would be an annual project that would take 12 months? Or is there some kind of indication what kind of project this will be in terms of time?
In terms of construction, it would be approximately a year.
Okay. Now, also, you mentioned that geographically it's located, is it between Adams and Jefferson?
It's between Jefferson and Adams. However, we are also combining it with an ATP application. So it's a longer stretch because of the ATP application.
So there will be a connection between this project and another project that you'll come to us with in the future. And there will be a connectedness between the two. Is that correct?
That's right.
Do the residents in the 8th District have a theme in terms of the work that they're doing here in their vision and plan that they've discussed with you?
It's basically connecting active transportation, so connecting to transit and encouraging bicycling and walking, and connecting to other ATP projects in the area along Jefferson and MLK.
Oh, I see. So is it the Expo line that you speak of, or which transit are you talking about?
So there's several transit connections there based from this project. So there's one on Jefferson, which is an ATP project. There's an Expo East project that Streets LA have done and completed a few years ago. And then there's future MLK projects as well.
Now, when you say MLK projects, what do you mean by that? MLK?
So we have an MLK project. We just did a tree planting recently with CD9 and a Metro Active Transport project.
Did you say MLK like Martin Luther King project?
Yes.
Okay, and that is a project that has something to do with environmental something, or I'm not familiar.
It's all for active transportation.
Oh, it's a transportation project, and it's called MLK?
On MLK.
Oh, on MLK.
It's on MLK, yes.
Okay, I'm trying to, please excuse me here. I'm just trying to get some clarity. So it's on MLK, got it. Okay, so yeah, well, I think that it's really great that they're working with you and that they have some kind of vision and that there is a connectedness in terms of what they're doing, not only with this project, but with the contiguous projects that are connected. So I think that's really great and what we've asked for. And particularly transportation does, in fact, drive a lot of our economic development. So I'm very glad to see, I don't know if this is a transit-orientated district area that they're feeding into, but in terms of planning, I'm very glad to hear what we're able to do with that council district around that area. Thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Calosa.
Thank you, President Good. I don't have any more questions. I think your colleague asked a lot of really good questions for Streets today. I'll just note that I appreciated that the public education materials for this project are going to be in English and Spanish. So I think that's really great that you guys are, emphasizing the language of people in this project, and any outreach that we do on these streetscape projects are really critical and important. So I just appreciate you all moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Calosa. And Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. Great project. I think that my other colleagues asked some questions here already, so I'm glad that you were able to get at least these $20,000 to be able to do that outreach in English and in Spanish, so conform the design of this streetscape. I think that's going to be interesting, and I'm glad that you all have been partnering with Redeemer, and it's part of a larger ATP grant. So congratulations to that. Seems like you all are connecting a lot of those dots. Thank you. No questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Rose, so this was Council District 8 initiated?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Just a small question, but the actual project was Council District 8 initiated?
Yes, there was a motion back in 2019 where CD8 did work on funding and putting together the funding and the idea of this project. I don't know if Anna has anything else to add, because she's the one that has been dealing more with CD8.
No, that's fine.
Okay, great. No, it's terrific. Okay, and it's a great example of community partnership. So, all right, I have no further questions. Do I have a motion to move this forward?
So move.
All right, I think President Pro Tem Davis got there first. Who was the other? Was that Vice President Garcia or Commissioner Villegas? Okay, so I'm going to take Commissioner Villegas as a second. Any objections, Vice President Garcia or Commissioner Calosa?
None. No objections either.
All right, hearing no objections, this item is approved forthwith. Call the Board of Public Works nothing if not enthusiastic. That is what I will take. All right, thank you, Rose and Anna, very much. Have a good Thanksgiving. All right, colleagues, let's move and go with the project. Let's go to item number 8. This is a oral report from, I believe, Only Street Services or Streets LA today. Status update on personal services contracts expiring within 90 days, plus policy number 793. I know that we have a caller or speaker on this item. We have a speaker on this item, right, TJ?
That is correct. Dr. Clyde T. Williams, if you're on the call, go ahead and unmute yourself by pressing star 6 to unmute yourself. Dr. Williams.
Good morning again. Dr. Tom Williams or Clyde T. Williams, also Director of LA 32 Neighborhood Council and Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. We're quite concerned about personal contracts and who's coming into our neighborhood council areas. And it's more than just neighborhood associations. Neighborhood councils are city organizations. And we're not getting notified as to when personal contractors are coming into our area and what they're doing, what the process is, what will be produced. We don't get any reports from either sanitation or any other, such as Bureau of Engineering. We were told that there is a person within the City Planning Department and Board of Public Works, Bureau of Engineering, who reviewed and approved, verbally at least, a project of construction of several houses within LA 32 Neighborhood Council area, and we were never notified that they were even operating or considering anything. So we're quite concerned regarding any contractors or consultants being used in our area without some sort of coordination, perhaps through Dunn, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, upstairs from you guys. And we need to be notified as to other city projects and considerations within our neighborhood council areas. So please, in the future, notify all neighborhood councils whenever somebody has a contract to do work within the neighborhood council area. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Stephanie Clements is with us today, and Monica Shelton Frierson. Hi, Monica. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Okay. So for this period, November the 24th, we only have one contract, or actually just funding, that's due to expire within the next 90 days, and that is our truck program. And that's just basically the funding source. And we plan to come back to the board with a full report as to how we're going to address the contract truck program. And that's all.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shelton Frierson. Any questions, colleagues? Vice President Garcia?
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay, President Pro Tem Davis?
So we will, I guess, get back with some details at our next report, I guess, Ms. Shelton, is that correct?
That is correct. It'll be a full board report when we come back and request funding through the AFE process, which is the current process. We're going to come back with a detailed board report.
Okay, thank you. Do you know what time period that will be?
That I'm not sure.
Hi, it's Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, Commissioner. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We plan to come back to the board in December.
In December?
Correct, because the current AFE authorization is only good until the end of December. So we're hoping to come back to the board in the beginning of December And our recommendation is going to be to extend the AFE through to June 30th, 2021.
Great.
This is Adel Hashkali. You want to just talk a little bit through the FSR, that funding was approved through the council action on the FSR and council and mayor to continue funding on this, right?
Yes, we have a current authorization for $6.4 million with an AFE through December 31st. And so at this point, that is all that is authorized. But in December, we're going to come back to the board recommending an extension to the AFE up to June 30th, 2021, and an increase in funding.
Great. Well, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I just want to say the increase in funding is still being negotiated amongst us and the CAO's office as to what the amount will actually be.
Okay, great. Well, I'm very glad to see, and I look and anticipate our future reports at the times that you've indicated as we look at the dynamics of the Board of Public Works and how it ties into what we're trying to do in our goals and the goals of the mayor in terms of diversity and inclusion. It's a very complex animal, but we're different bureaus, but we're still one department. So when we look at the data in terms of who we are, in terms of not only the services we provide, but in terms of who's providing those services, then I support the efforts that you are doing in street services. And I thank you for your collaboration with the mayor's office, and am pleased to hear and see the vision that you both have.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Calosa, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, President Good.
Okay. And any questions, Commissioner Villegas?
No questions from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Hearing no questions, any objections or commentary from anybody?
Outstanding report.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Shelton Frierson. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Adele. Hearing no objections, the report is received. Okay, colleagues, we have item number 4 left on the agenda. There are quite a few speakers, and I think we'll have a very good and a presentation as well. So given that, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess. We will return at 11:19 a.m. sharp. So I expect and hope that I'll see everyone back at 11:19. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, sir.
So while we're on recess, and since I'm on a different computer, could I test the sharing of this screen for the next presentation?
I don't think PJ can hear you, but you can try to share your screen.
I can see you, but.
Can folks see my title page of the presentation?
I do, Martin.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Are we taking a break?
Yes, the board meeting will resume in about 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Board, oh, cool. Hold on one sec, let me.
All right, colleagues, we ready?
Yes, we are.
Vice President Garcia? And President Pro Tem Davis. We good? Come on, folks. Okay, colleagues. Everyone's here.
President Good, allow me to, with your permission, reestablish quorum and call roll.
Please.
Excellent. We have President Good, Vice President Garcia, President Pro Tem Davis, Commissioner Flores, and Commissioner Villegas present. The time is 11:21 a.m. We also have City Attorney Representative Mr. Ted Jordan, and I am TJ Knight, Assistant Executive Officer.
Thank you, TJ. All right. Colleagues, community, bureau, folks, we're on item number 4. This is all council districts. This is a request for proposals, sidewalk and transit amenities program. We're recommending the board, 1, authorize the Bureau of Street Services to issue and advertise the transmitted RFP to solicit proposals for a new advertising-supported sidewalk and transit amenities program that will succeed the current coordinated street furniture program upon the expiration of the contract in December 2021. And 2, authorize the Bureau of Street Services and an evaluation committee to evaluate the respondents and proposals received based upon the requirements, evaluation criteria, and program goals set forth in the RFP. I know we have I know we have a number of, how many callers do we have, TJ?
Let me see. We have 12, including a representative from Metro.
So we've all received a lot of communication regarding this item, which we embrace and welcome and appreciate. This meeting, of course, is part of a public process and a crucial part of a public process, and as evidenced by the turnout we have here. So what I want to do is go ahead and start with the public comment from our callers. Then I'm going to ask Streets LA, led by Adele, Martin, Audrey, Lance, and a whole crew of folks to give their presentation on the item, and then we will have deliberations from there. So, Mr. Knight, if you can start us off with our callers, that would be great.
Certainly. So if Ron Bitzer is on the line, is in the meeting, if you could press *6 to unmute yourself, and we'll go ahead and start.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. My name's Ron Bitzer. I'm CD2, a member of the Laurel Grove Neighborhood Association, seeking to address the digital display nature of this pending proposal for bus stop ads. I consider the proposal to be in part for exterior-facing signs designed to capture the eyeballs of people driving by bus stops. And here in North Hollywood, we have some experience in digital display signs that blink every 8 seconds for drivers on the 170 freeway. That is, today, if you drive south on the 170 freeway, you're going to be exposed to a 50-foot high digital display sign for the commercial development called NoHo West at Oxnard Street and the 170 freeway. Now, we tried to bring to the attention of the city national and international studies regarding the danger to distracting drivers when these digital display signs blink every 8 seconds. And guess what? The City Planning Commission agreed with us. They decided in September of 2018, quote, remove in its entirety any digital sign facing the freeway, end of quote. Now, of course, that city planning was overturned. Please consider the problem of digital display signs and drivers.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bitzer. Our next public comment on item number 4 will be Christina Smith. If you are in the meeting, please press *6 to unmute. And as a reminder for everyone who's participating and wants to speak on this item, you have a 2-minute limit. *6 to unmute yourself, Christina. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hello. Good morning, Commissioners. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Christina Smith, Secretary and past Chair of Pacific Palisades Community Council. PPCC has been the voice of the Palisades since 1973. As we explained in our recent letters, we and none of our colleagues on the West Side Regional Alliance of Councils received adequate notice of this proposal. We've not seen the RFP, and we've never had the opportunity to provide input or to comment on this apparently extensive and impactful program. Pacific Palisades is a largely residential and coastal community with a small business district governed by our specific plan. That plan expressly prohibits all animated or digital off-site signs, and we oppose the installation of off-site digital signs in any areas other than sign districts. Our main thoroughfare is Sunset Boulevard, a designated scenic highway. We also have beautiful street furniture installed and maintained by our member organization, Pride, via community donations. About 10 years ago, supported by then Councilmember Bill Rosendahl, we received an exemption and were allowed to keep our street furniture. We strongly believe that digital signage in bus shelters would compromise public safety and the character of our community. We urge you today to delay issuance of the RFP unless and until adequate outreach occurs and local communities are afforded an adequate opportunity for review and comment. If this is going forward, we insist that the provisions of our community and specific plans, as well as scenic highway protections, be applied and that required environmental and coastal commission analysis and review takes place. Finally, we respectfully request an exemption from this program for Pacific Palisades. We want to thank you for your consideration. And I do want to mention, because I've been asked to mention, that there are 3 callers who would like to be recognized at some point. I have their numbers. They have not been able to be acknowledged. I don't know how to go about giving that information to you.
Thank you, Christina. I will make sure that everyone who's in the meeting who wants
Yeah,
to
there are
speak
3 people specifically, Stacy Shore, Monica Rodriguez, and Steve Sands. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Smith.
you. Thank you, Christina. Next, the next public commenter on item number 4, Michael Shilstone.
Hi, good morning. I'm Michael Shilstone with Central City Association. We're pleased that the city is taking a dynamic approach to the new street furniture contract, thinking beyond individual transit shelters to envision a comprehensive program that will altogether make our sidewalks and streets more accessible, safe, and navigable. We believe wayfinding signage is an important piece of a holistic public realm approach, and we have joined with a coalition of community organizations working on wayfinding systems in different parts of the city. Currently, there's no centralized city agency or office responsible for overseeing and coordinating these efforts, and they are implemented in an ad hoc fashion. We believe this new program offers a unique opportunity to unify and coordinate a currently disconnected system and process. To do so, we request the RFP and subsequent agreement with a vendor include a provision for working with community partners like us to fund, implement, and maintain both existing wayfinding systems across the city and new wayfinding systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shilstone.
The next public commenter on item number 4 is Barry Johnson.
Hi, Barry Johnson, Studio City Residents Association Vice President. I'm just curious why we need new bus shelters. What's wrong with the existing shelters that we have? I urge the commissioners to withhold this RFP pending further community outreach. I know my neighborhood council in Studio City has received nothing on this. I believe you also need a traffic study showing how driver distraction could be dangerous to both bicyclists and pedestrians. And I think the RFP also needs to include a solicitation for a static ad version like we have now. We appear to be willing to do anything for the almighty dollar. Los Angeles just continues to get uglier and uglier. Let's stop selling out LA and finally stand up for a more beautiful Los Angeles instead of having mini Las Vegas signage at every bus shelter over the city. And one last thing, one size does not fit all in Los Angeles. What may fit on a downtown street does not fit in suburban Los Angeles, where you have a lot of residential housing. So please also consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Our next speaker on item number 4, Patrick Frank.
Hi, folks. My name is Patrick Frank. I'm the president of the Coalition for Scenic Los Angeles. There are a number of reasons why this RFP should be withheld. First of all, there has never been a study of the traffic safety of a sign like this at eye level next to a roadway. There have been many traffic safety studies about digital billboards on poles, and the results that they have yielded are very unsettling about driver distraction. So this particular RFP should be withheld pending an independent traffic safety study of a changing digital sign in this location. Second, Angelenos simply don't want these. There have been 2 public opinion polls of LA voters taken in the fall of 2019, and I've shared these poll results with Streets LA staff that show that Angelenos do not want changing digital signs anywhere in LA, or they would rather restrict them to area zone regional commercial, which is less than 10% of LA City. So these public opinion polls show that Angelenos don't want them, and moreover, 30 neighborhood councils have filed community impact statements with an overall similar impress to what the public opinion polls said. The 30 neighborhood councils said that they want digital billboards only in area zone regional commercial, or they want them banned altogether. So more neighborhood council input needs to be given to this, and the RFP should be withheld for that reason. The third is the privacy issue. Californians have shown in the recent election that they care more about privacy than citizens of any other state. The RFP so far says that the RFP will comply with Proposition 24, but it does not say how. We do not know who is going to handle this data, whose hands it's going to pass through, and how consumers can opt out. So until there is more specificity into how this will comply with California's privacy laws, the RFP should be withheld. Number 4, a number of the sign companies that are going to bid on this project have illegal billboards elsewhere in LA that are not compliant with current law. No billboard company that bids on this should be allowed to if it holds any illegal signs. Fifth, the RFP has no specification for an ad-free version. This RFP should be withheld.
Speaker, your time has run.
Thank you. I will remute.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Our next speaker on item number 4, Elise Swanson. If you're in the meeting, please unmute yourself.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elise Swanson, San Pedro Chamber of Commerce, speaking in support of item 4. As a satellite office of Discover LA, I know firsthand how important a comprehensive wayfinding signage and transit program is for residents and visitors to Los Angeles. Pre-COVID, our chamber worked with thousands of cruise ship passengers and visitors to the LA waterfront for events such as LA Fleet Week and Cirque du Soleil. And we have literally mapped hundreds of trips throughout Los Angeles for area visitors. A new sidewalk and transit amenities program with the inclusion of smart technologies to provide real-time transit information is critical for our ability in facilitating travel across the city. I am especially supportive of the inclusion of interactive kiosks that would allow for event information to be available to the public and the opportunity to promote local businesses to visitors. I urge your support of the RFP. This program is a step in the right direction and will truly enhance our ability to support Los Angeles as a world-class destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Our next speaker is Dr. Clyde T. Williams. Dr. Williams?
Hello. Yes. Dr. Clyde T. Williams or Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, and we're quite concerned regarding these kiosks. I know of some already operating, such as next to the City Hall, and if they're information only and they're directed to the people in the bus stop, that's one thing. But when they're directed to people on the sidewalk and nobody has said anything about pedestrian view and pedestrian distraction, and we have enough problems with cell phones and people walking across streets right now. If you're going to have it so that it's visible for traffic also, that means that you're not only distracting the pedestrians, but you're also distracting the drivers. A bad combination in downtown LA. So I'd highly recommend that if you're going to do this, use the current patterns. That is, they're only visible by people in the bus stop under a canopy. not visible to the traffic and not visible to general pedestrian traffic on the adjacent sidewalks. We need bus shelters. I can give you 20 different locations within the 90032 area of our neighborhood council, and it's a real problem. But don't add other problems of pedestrian distraction, driver distraction to this. And also, get the neighborhood councils involved. You haven't circulated this well, and I say nobody in our neighborhood council knew that it was coming. So thank you.
2 minutes is up. Thank you, Doug. Our next speaker is Robin Greenberg.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Robin Greenberg. I'm president of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. But today, I am speaking as secretary of the West Side Regional Alliance of Councils. The West Side Regional Alliance of Councils, or RAC, is a cooperative regional coalition made up of all 14 neighborhood and community councils on the west side of Los Angeles, which together represent over 500,000 stakeholders. Our member councils have monitored the city's signage outdoor advertising policy for many years. 10 of our councils have passed motions supporting version B+ of the city's proposed new sign ordinance, which constitutes official passage of the motion. That measure would restrict any new off-site signs, including digital billboards, to sign districts in the 22 areas already zoned as regional commercial for high-intensity commercial use, and would also enforce a ban on conversion of existing billboards to digital format. We strongly object to the city issuing an RFP for the STAP program, the proposal to add digital signs with changing images in bus shelters or other street furniture, or making decisions as to the specifications of street furniture or scope of the program without making a dedicated effort to seek input from local councils, community leaders, and the public. We request that plans to release a prepared request for proposals, RFP, be delayed until community outreach by Streets LA has occurred and our voices and input considered in the drafting of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Greenberg.
Our next speaker on item number 4 is John H. Wellborn.
Good morning. Good morning. I am John Wellborn, and I am the Vice President of the Windsor Square Association and Mid-City Neighborhood Association, founded in 1925. And I just think it's important to note that this, again, is a billboard industry Thanksgiving surprise. The Plum Committee, about this time, I think it was last year, could have been the year before, brought out a billboard industry event when nobody was able to really pay attention around Thanksgiving. And this is a huge issue for the general public and for public safety. I oppose the action, at least until the city has heard through the Los Angeles Times that there is an action being contemplated. So I suggest that you continue this matter until there has been a comprehensive article in the Los Angeles Times informing the public. All of the billboard lobbyists know about it, of course, but they usually, as I say, favor Thanksgiving week. So please continue the item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wellborn. Our next speaker on item number 4 is Rudy Melendez.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Rudy Melendez. I'm a CD2 resident stakeholder. I live within the Studio City Neighborhood Council boundary. I haven't been informed about the city's efforts to install more billboard light in our communities. I'm opposed to this project. I think public works agencies should be focused. Excuse me, I'm talking, please.
Circulation at largemountchronicle.com.
I think that the Public Works Project Board should be focused on keeping the existing bus shelters clean. Right now, they're urine soaked and stained. Very few have trash cans. When you look at the northeast end of the country, the valley, there are very few bus shelters at all, if any. And you should be focusing your efforts on installing bus shelters in communities that need them. I want to point out that my public comment is being interrupted by somebody who's unable to unmute their phone, so I hope that I could get I'd also like to point out that it seems disingenuous to have this meeting at this time when everybody's preparing for Thanksgiving holiday. And also, it also seems very disingenuous to have the public comment period start before we've heard the board discuss what their proposals are. It just seems really disingenuous. And I hope that you would take into consideration that our community doesn't support this. There's been a lot of great points made by other public speakers today, and I hope that you will take everything into consideration. Do the proper outreach. You know, we want a vibrant public transportation in our city, but you need to focus on the real issues, and that's ridership is fine. Why are you doing this now? What really is your motivation? Thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. Whoever is not speaking, I need everyone else, please mute your phone.
Mr. President, it's the caller whose phone number ends in 200. TJ, will you please mute that phone, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Thank you. If they speak again and they're not the speaker, please continue muting their phone. And if they can't unmute, if they can't keep their phone muted when it's not their turn to talk, please put them in the waiting room for the Zoom meeting. And at that point, they can call into 621-2489 and just simply monitor the meeting without actually interrupting the meeting. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, TJ. Okay, continue.
We have a couple more speakers. Is Barbara Roydy on the line? And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Barbara Royd? Okay, we can come back to Barbara since I'm not. We have two people with their hands raised, and I want to make sure and allow them the opportunity to speak. Is there someone with the last digits 147 on the line?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello,
Yes.
Commissioners, you can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Steve San. I am the Chairman of the Westwood Community Council and Council District 5. Thank you for this opportunity to address this matter. Commissioners, our community, and as you've heard from several of the other public speakers before, we have been involved with and been monitoring this issue of street furniture and digital billboards really for several decades. I've appeared before the Board of Public Works when we could still go to City Hall on this item in the past and on also a related item of bus benches, which are separate but right next to the bus shelters, all of which contain advertising. I don't want to repeat the comments that were made necessarily, but I want to embrace many of them and add this note. Commissioners, there are many communities that have invested literally millions of dollars to improve their communities through streetscape improvement programs. In fact, Westwood Village, we were, I believe, the first coordinated street furniture program in the city. This was in the 1990s. Our property owners and merchants assessed themselves millions of dollars, which took many years to pay off through bond measures, or a bond that was floated to do this, so that we could have beautiful benches and bus shelters, etc., trash cans, and so on. We fought previously, and we will do it again, to ensure that any street furniture that is put into our community, as well as other communities that have created these coordinated street furniture programs, that their programs be respected. It's very concerning that this would be a one-size-fits-all policy. The city of Los Angeles is extremely diverse. That is one of our greatest assets. Each community has its own identity. Little Tokyo is different from Koreatown, is different from parts of the Valley, Hollywood, etc. And we would truly hope that the Board of Public Works Commissioners will recognize this diversity, one of the attractions that brings tourists to our city, that each neighborhood does not look cookie cutter alike. As to the digital billboard aspect, The fact that these billboards will be at eye level, at street level, it's an entirely different impact than a digital billboard that is placed on the roof of a building, a skyscraper, or, on the Wilshire Grand downtown. And the impact of digital billboards at street level is massive. Billboards like that basically assault pedestrians and they assault drivers. And the blinking, changing nature is, of course, as has been mentioned, a safety concern. Lastly, as been noted numerous times, there's been no outreach to the community on this, and we respectfully request that you please not rush this through, but utilize the wonderful network of neighborhood and community councils and groups like the Central City Association and other groups to ensure that stakeholders have their voice before this RFP is released. Thank you very much for your consideration, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sand. Is there a caller ending in 495 with their hand raised? If you would unmute yourself and identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Adriana Dela Cruz. I'm from CD11, and I wanted to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to say that there are a lot of concerns about this particular item number 4, but at the same time, I'm familiar with the Bureau of Street Services and the department, and I think that they'd be probably more than willing to discuss things further at a more intimate level, possibly at the available meetings that the stakeholders have, including the neighborhood council board members, if they can be scheduled to speak at perhaps BONC, which is the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, and also LANC, which is also another coalition that many departments go and speak there. I know that they've discussed this throughout the year in development with the advisory committee that they have that consists of many people from that particular representative group. I don't think this is an unreasonable thing to implement based on the fact that there are a lot of missing or just not haven't been developed in underrepresented communities, and I'd hate it to be a shame to let this go because there's a big outcry for those that are unable to be on this call in the inner cities that do not have bus stops at all. So if there's a compromise to be made here, let's work through this together in a dialogue. I'm sorry that there's some callers who have been able to be reached to be able to speak further on this, especially within my community. So I'm hopeful that this continues on, but I'm in support of the actual need for some street furniture in places that are missing. So I'm thankful for you and your time, and have a good Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Ms. Dela Cruz. You too.
And so we have a caller with call-in user 5 as their, as I'm seeing them in the Zoom call, call-in user 5, if you would unmute yourself and identify yourself and mute yourself by pressing *6. Call-in user 5, are you there?
Hello? Hello.
Yes.
This is a different number, but I'm going to grab it while I've got it. This is Barbara Brady from Westwood Southwest Santa Monica Boulevard Homeowners Association in CD5. And I want to thank the board for hearing public comment and want you to know that we hope that you will hold off on approval of the RFP at this time so that we can have a robust conversation with street services. We fully understand that transit users deserve and need good shelters from the elements. However, this RFP is something that we've not discussed or had a chance to review, and our streetscape is very important to us. A cursory look at the RFP, which was posted yesterday, makes us wonder what the potential is for proliferation of digital signage on our streets and whether there will be limits and what protections we will have to protect against overconcentrations of signage. It's great that transit stops where the majority of riders are will have shelters, but if those shelters have no ads and the department and the program are relying upon a small area where the revenues from those signs will generate the highest income, there is a potential for radically negatively impacting our communities. Our area was targeted by the billboard industry when the billboard settlement agreements were forged and thrown away by the courts, but we had 3 digital billboards at one corner. Traffic never moved. Not only is this something that goes against Vision Zero's goals, but it endangers street users, pedestrians, vulnerable bicyclists, and the workers who take care of our streets. People have already talked about the dangers of digital signage. That is something that cannot be overlooked. We want to preserve good pedestrian access. We want to be able to have a program that serves the entire community without blight. Some people do not like digital signage and are concerned about the impact on our
2
streets,
minutes.
on our kids.
Ms. Brady, your
Thank
2 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brady.
And so we do also have Cassie Halls from Metro, who is on the line.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Cassie Halls, and I'm representing LA Metro. I'm providing a verbal report to a comment letter we submitted through our Chief Executive Officer. We're expressing our strong support for staff's request for proposals. We see the release of this RFP as an important step forward in delivering a better bus experience for the transit riding constituents in LA, who are largely low-income, Latino, Black, and Indigenous persons of color. We look forward to partnering on the critical work ahead and believe that great bus stops are the product of strong interagency partnerships. We greatly appreciate the strong collaboration and openness that the program staff have demonstrated, as well as the leadership of the Council and Board of Public Works to prioritize the placement of shelters in areas of greatest need. We plan to continue to work with staff to ensure that we are prioritizing low-income residents who are using the bus to access essential services, particularly in Metro's defined equity-focused communities, as well as areas of severe heat and high ridership corridors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Halls. Does that conclude our public comment, Mr. Knight?
Yes, it does, President.
All right. I want to again thank everyone for coming in and being patient with our technology in these certainly unusual times, and for everyone's thoughtful, very thoughtful feedback. We appreciate it very much. So with that, Mr. Adel Hashgalil and Audrey Netzawong are here from Streets LA to present on the item. So we'll hand it over. I'm sure the technology's been figured out with TJ and Adele and company. So I think Martin is here on this as well, and the consultants and Lance Oishi. We have a full complement of Streets LA.
Great. Thank you, President Good and Honorable Commissioners, Mr. Executive Officer and City Attorney. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to the speakers who made this to come and provide valuable comments to us. My name is Adel Hashgalil. I'm the General Manager of Streets LA, and I have a great team of staff who dedicated their life and career to serving the community, starting with Lance Oishi, Audrey Netzawong. I have Martin Schlager, Fred Muzabapur, and also we have a consultant team with us here with John Govis and also Melissa Petrovina. And really, what we want to talk to you today, and I'm not sure if Martin, you're going to be able to share the PowerPoint, if you don't mind. I'm going to just walk through and give you kind of a background and hopefully try to answer some of the questions raised today by the staff. I just want to wait for a second till Martin puts that up. Great. What you have in front of you today is for your consideration and authorization a release of requests for proposals for new and modern sidewalk and transit amenities program that is supported from revenue from advertising. Enhancing the quality of life is our mission that is achieved by making our streets and sidewalks safe, mobile, and sustainable. Next slide. Next slide, please. So why do we need the RFP and the program? In the face of excessive heat, climate change, equity, public health, accessibility, and safety, our communities in LA demand and deserve a world-class street furniture network that can provide safe transit, shade, information, and accessibility for all transit users, pedestrians, residents, and visitors. We all have seen many pictures, whether in South LA, Pacoima, San Pedro, East LA, and other communities across Los Angeles, where transit users, young and old, are struggling to find some shade behind a column or a sign to protect themselves from the heat of the sun while waiting for the bus and not knowing when the bus is gonna come. You see a picture right now of Ron. Ron is a disabled resident in Silver Lake in a wheelchair waiting for Metro Bus 92 at Glendale and Fletcher, trying to protect himself from the sun and trying to navigate the narrow sidewalk and trying to wait for a bus so he can commute to his doctor's appointment. And he's not knowing when the bus is gonna come in. This should not happen in our city. This should not happen in Los Angeles. Our residents want to access information about transit system. They want wayfinding. They want emergency and community information and nearby businesses and restaurants. Our program goal is to provide the necessary shelter, shade, safety, and comfort. This is why we need to expand and modernize our street furniture program through this RFP that's before you today. While we anticipate expanded revenue from this program, what drives this program is to support pedestrians and pedestrian activity and the shared use of the sidewalk and the opportunity to modernize the system. Let me tell you how did we get here. The current 20-year contract expires December 31st, 2020. In 2018, after lengthy public input and deliberation at the Board of Public Works City Council Committee, Streets LA was directed to negotiate with the current contractor towards a possible update and extension of the contract. Streets LA was not able to come to an agreement with the current contractor on terms that for the city's interest. In November 2019, after additional deliberation and public input, the Public Works City Council Committee and the City Council expire at the end of 2021 and to issue an RFP to undertake a competitive process for the creation and operation of a successor program that expands and modernizes the street furniture program with focus on increasing shade and cover for the highest used transit stops and with the highest exposure to heat, and explore various business models, eliminate advertising exclusivity to provide flexibility and agility, modernize the system to better serve our residents and businesses, expand advertising opportunities, and streamline the deployment process. Let's talk about outreach. I know we heard a lot about outreach. And this decision to go out with an RFP to solicit new proposals, one that was the subject of extensive policy and public deliberations. We met with each of the council offices and had multiple public council and council committee meetings. In 2020, we have developed the RFP based on industry best practices and the experience of major cities such as London, New York, Boston, Phoenix, and Toronto, with the input of industry experts as well as many community stakeholders. We had meetings with organizations focused on transit and the use of the public right-of-way. Bike LA, Move LA, LA Walks, Climate Resolve, Alliance for. We reached out to dozens of businesses and industry groups and met with business leaders whose members might participate in the program, including Business Fed, LA Chamber of Commerce, Central City Association, LA Clean Tech Incubator, American Institute of Architects. We also consulted, as you heard, with the Stakeholder Advisory Council in Streets LA, which represents community members across the city, as far as back as January, to hear and integrate their input, which included a desire to prioritize equity, solar power and sustainability and the ability to tailor public service messages to specific neighborhoods. Our council includes a wide range of representation from all over the city, including neighborhood council leaders, community-based organizations, policy and transportation experts, and business groups. And I personally highlighted this program over the last 2 Congress of Neighborhood Councils. Last Tuesday, we immediately, when we heard about the concern, we met with Scenic LA, that you heard them speak today, to hear their concerns and offered to participate in the neighborhood council meeting that they were having that evening on Tuesday to discuss and have a dialogue with the community about this issue. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to participate, and I committed to Scenic LA dialogue with them and all concerned groups. This year, we also undertook an RFI process, request for information process, to help inform and 70 businesses who expressed interest in the RFI were included. More than 30 companies participated in an online networking event, which we organized to encourage companies to connect as potential partners in responding to the eventual RFP. This networking event was promoted widely and put on YouTube so everyone and anyone can see it. Now, including these industry participants, we have specifically provided info to more than 60 unique groups or their representatives. But of course, that was not everyone. And as we have learned and heard over the last week and today, and evident today in the testimony and the hearing that we heard here, more outreach and engagement is needed and necessary before the program elements and the contract is finalized and presented to the policy. I commit to all of you that we will expand the community outreach and engagement to ensure that all voices are heard. And as probably you would know, I strongly believe in inclusion. My department and myself and my team all committed to including and inclusion of everyone. And I just want to say is we are actually working very hard to schedule immediate meetings and with the community. And that could be done in parallel with the RFP process. The RFP, the request for proposals, is just a vehicle to solicit proposals. It's not the final program and doesn't firm the final elements of this program. Further review and deliberation will be conducted with full public input, as we are doing here today, and policy direction to finalize the program. The program will not be one size fits all, as we heard today from many of the speakers. It will not be one size fits all, and will focus on the needs of the community, transit riders, and businesses, while respecting the protection of our residential communities, scenic corridors, and specific community planning areas that was discussed here today. So I want to make sure that people understand this is not going to be one size fits all. And we're going to consider all these elements as we finalize the final program and have council give us the final approval. Your input and considered. Our current, slide number 5, next one please. Our current street furniture program is 20 years old, and we have a chance to modernize the program and improve the contract based on lessons learned. Modernizing street furniture is critical to us. Only one of the 1,875 transit shelters in the city were installed under the existing contract. So 96% of the transit shelters we have out there in Los Angeles, minimum of 10 years old. Some are 20 and 30 years old. Let's talk about equity. Equity, we heard from our speakers. Equity is critical to all of us. Shelters support public transit ridership. It is Streets LA's aim to install enough transit shelters that 75% of all transit riders in each council district have access to a transit shelter. In 2001, it was envisioned that 2,500 transit shelters will be deployed. Fewer than 1,900 transit shelters are installed, and in a new contract, we seek to exceed the original goal and reach to at least 3,000 transit shelters. Let's talk about exclusivity and digital. Create a more agile program is critical for us. That's better integrates technology and as part of smart city concept, and that can respond to when new ideas are proposed. Exclusivity will be removed. This element of the current contract is an obstacle to other kinds of installations in the public right-of-way. creating a digital network that can make available more real-time transit information, locally relevant public service messaging, and interactive and wayfinding information. Advertising will also have additional opportunity through digital and smart shelters. And this includes advertising opportunities for our local merchants that would not previously have had the opportunity. I know that many of the comments we heard was about the use of digital advertising. Digital advertising technologies have evolved over time and are being used across the world and the US. Digital panels for advertising are not billboards, and currently they look like any static advertising panels that limits frequency of change and controls the illumination to minimize impact and disturbance. The benefits of digital advertising is enabling us to provide immediate emergency information notification, enhance the delivery of city and transit services, wayfinding, localized business information, and public service announcements. Digital advertising will not be everywhere. Consideration will be given to make sure that they are static-like and they protect residential communities, scenic corridors, and specific community planning areas. Extent and location, brightness, and rate of change will all be developed through a policy process to establish these parameters. We want the responses from the RFP to inform these policy decisions. Next slide. And this is just a picture of what it looks like, a static versus a digital. Digital panels and advertising has evolved. We want to bring those and install them, and so our residents, our community can see them and feel them and get a good understanding, but all research and analysis to evaluate their impact. It's important, next slide. Let's talk about the timeline here. It's important to collapse in service at the end of this contract happens, which will impact the services, the maintenance, and our goal of providing shade and shelter to our community. Next slide. We are continuing a transparent public engagement, public policy process to develop a final program elements and contract. We will be working with each of our community partners, the people that we heard here today, neighborhood councils. We're going to get out and ensure that every voice, starting with what we heard today, and continue the process to inform our policymakers' decisions. And we're going to be able to develop the bookends, what I call the bookends and the parameters for this program. I want to stress again the word that I heard from the speakers. It's not one size fits all. And I agree 100% and fully. Some of our neighborhoods have to be protected because of their special designation and characteristics. We will respect that and work with that. But I would like to continue the process to get the proposals that start the process, and so we have the process to inform us, so we can provide everyone the information they need. So at the end of the day, when the policymakers have to make a decision, with an informed process from the community, from the technology, from the proposals, so we can provide a holistic plan moving forward. That's some concerns that we heard today and how to expect the public process to continue. I'm going to talk about digital. Next slide, please. The RFP places control of the programs in the hands of the city. The RFP already includes measures to limit the parameters of the digital advertising: no motion, no sound, and to utilize industry standards. These parameters will be further developed with the public and policy input, including but not limited to extent, location, illumination, and control. Next thing on data. Next slide. We heard a lot about data and privacy. We have already stated in the RFP, only non-personalized data will be used to enhance the services of our users. But as stated in the RFP, it's centralized, we said that clearly, and is owned solely by the city, and is protected by the California Consumer Privacy Act, the California Prop 24 in this year, and the city's digital code of ethics. Further policy guidance will be obtained from our policymakers to include the concern today, and we'll look forward to hear more about the input from the public. Investment in the city is not just about shelter and shade. It's about reinvestment in our communities to make our communities safe, mobile, accessible. Remember the picture, the disabled resident in Los Angeles waiting at the corner of Fletcher and Glendale to take 92 bus. We were able to invest money and resources to make that street, the sidewalk, and provide him shelter and provide people like him shelter. So now next time they wait for a bus, they can take that bus and be able to get the information and what they need to commute. This is the future. This is the future of how we can take this enhancing the shade, the shelter information, and then also invest back in making our streets and sidewalks safe and mobile for everyone. That's clear goal of our elements, but we're gonna get more direction from our policymakers because that's critical. It's not just about shade and shelter. It's about reinvesting in our communities to make our communities a better place to live. Next one. You know, we heard a little bit about ad content, and assure everyone that the ad content in any of these advertising, as we're doing right now, will be governed by the city and its policy. Next slide. We want to streamline the process, the deployment process, and we want to be transparent so everybody knows where everything is going to go. We will have a plan moving forward that where digital will happen if it's approved by the policymakers. We're going to add new shelters, where we're going to do an investment, and our goal is to add components of public safety, public health, including now we added 270 plus, I think it's 320 hand sanitizing stations. Our shelters, because we know public health is critical to us. We're looking at adding hand washing stations, hydration stations. These are things that are critical to our residents that travel and use transit, our visitors, our riders every day. So we're going to work very hard on streamlining the approval process, but being very transparent and providing really a clear deployment plan and clear information. Next slide. You know, I want to just conclude by saying I'm very proud of the staff that we have, but also appreciative of the community. We work for you. We are here to serve you and protect you. And if we have not reached out to you specifically, I apologize for that. But the goal forward, and I want to reach out to each and one of you and be able to have a open dialogue, open communication, because the only way for us to move forward is through and collaboration. And I commit to you that we will do that. And I know my board and will direct me to ensure that that is being done and inclusion. The RFP is just a vehicle to receive proposals. It's not the, so it's important to start the process now so we are able to have a program come January 2022. And the elements, what you talked about today, will be included in the final program because that's a policy decision that will be made. Those things are not something that I will do. I will inform the policymakers. They'll take your input, my input, and they will make the final say into the program. And I'll assure you, I'll make sure that your input is conveyed as we will continue to gather that information. Our program will not be one size fits all. We will be informed by these proposals while we continue the public engagement process. Many of the parameters guiding the final program will still have to be finalized with public and policy input. This modern program is essential and needed today more than ever. In the face of excessive heat, climate change, equity, public health, accessibility, and safety, more in need of this. We need to have a responsive, modern street furniture program. Our communities deserve a world-class street network, every community in Los Angeles, that can provide safe transit, shade, information, and accessibility for all transit users, pedestrians, residents, and visitors. Thank you to all the speakers today and all the community members. I am sure that we all share in our goal to enhance quality of life for all while making our streets safe, mobile, and sustainable. I invite you, let's join hands, let's join minds, let's join hearts in making Los Angeles a better place to live, work, and enjoy, a place that we can be proud to call home. My staff and I are available, Mr. President, to answer any of your questions and look forward to your direction.
Thank you, Adele. Thank you, Streets LA team. Clear the board here. Okay. Appreciate that very much. So, colleagues, let's start deliberations. I'm going to start with Vice President Garcia. Vice President Garcia, questions and or comments, please.
Thank you, President Good. I have a whole lot of notes going on, but I'm going to try to just kind of narrow it down on a couple of questions that I have. Adele, thank you for your presentation. You did a very good job in explaining the process and explaining what, the intention is. I'm also thankful to BSS that you brought this to our attention basically a year in advance. So that gives us a lot of time to work through this and make sure that we really work with the community for everybody that's involved in this. But let me ask you a question. I know that digital billboard has been such a big controversial issue, obviously with today's calls. I was counting how many calls we have. I think there was like 13 no's and 3 yeses, so I could see, the controversy there. What other cities have been implementing this type of billboard? And do you know that? And has research been done? And how have they implemented this? Have they implemented in low-income communities? And what has been the benefits and the challenges for something like this in communities that are either low income or really need the bus shelter? Can you tell me something about how you compared this type of program to other cities? You're on mute, Adele.
Thank you very much for the question. As I mentioned, really we wanted to develop the RFP to learn from other cities like London, New York, Phoenix, Boston, and Toronto. And we've brought in Melissa and John Gobis, and who are experts in the transit program to help inform us of what we're doing. But before I turn it over to John, I want to just say there's an opportunity when you do digital that you can actually bring in a lot of that information, emergency information management system. You can really broadcast emergency management, whether it's a disaster information or anything you want to direct the public to do. That's going to make it really an easy way to be able to disseminate information. Also be able to link and provide access to local businesses, to do wayfinding, to have all that opportunity. So when you're digital, you're actually adding a lot of components to go with it. And it helps tremendously. However, I know there was concern about it, but the technology has evolved so much that I, as I promised, is actually the best thing to do is to see it. And I've seen some of them and they look like static. And I'm not saying that's the right way, but also it doesn't have to be everywhere in the city. But let me ask John or Melissa to help inform that question, if you don't mind. They're the experts in this industry and want to make sure they can help further that answer.
Yes, thank you, Adele. And Madam Vice President, the vast majority of major cities that have street furniture programs are moving towards digital. And believe it or not, the reason is not necessarily for the revenue. It's for the utility of digital and its ability to present real-time information to the public and transit riders. In cities where we've recently converted the programs, like in Boston, the displays themselves are serving multiple purposes. They're not only providing real-time information to transit riders, but they're also providing community information. And I think we've mentioned this before, but during COVID, digital displays have been used incredibly successfully all around the world in cities like Paris and London, Toronto, to present information to underserved populations, people who don't have access to Wi-Fi and may not have, the ability to access it on their phones. So it's been very, very successful in that regard. It does generate a significant more amount of money, but as been mentioned in Adele's presentation, we can control the number of flips, we can control the brightness, and as Adele said also, you probably don't need digital everywhere, and digital can be distributed throughout the city on an equitable basis, and some of the displays don't have to carry advertising. So as was stated, there is a great degree of flexibility. I think, people get caught up in thinking about digital billboards. This is not a billboard program. It's a digital program, but it uses the best of digital to present real-time information to people at the street level.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that answer. So I know that there was some concern based on today's callers and in previous conversations about public safety. Was there research and studies done? And if so, can you share that with us? Since other cities have implemented bus shelter digital advertising, what we really want to know, and what the community is asking, will this cause more public safety issues, or in other words, will this cause more accidents? Will drivers be distracted, and how do we intend to go around that?
Let me start with trying to answer that. And before I get into the distraction, let's talk about the positive aspect of it. The ability of this program to invest back into the streets and sidewalks to make the streets safe, accessible, providing crosswalks, providing access ramps, providing crossings, is a great opportunity to make our streets and sidewalks safe. So that's critical for all of us to do. However, the research that, I'm not an expert. However, I've done some research myself because I'm curious about this. Most of the research has been 50-foot billboards, digital billboards that are really a distraction. When you do on the 170 freeway, drive the 5 freeway going south, you go by Citadel. We know these are not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that looks like static like. I want to have John just help me, or some of the team help me with that specific issue. Is there's no specific studies done linking, linking digital panels on advertising to increase accidents and injury.
No, there are no studies that we have seen any place that we've worked, either in Canada or in the United States, specifically that deal with safety-related issues with street furniture that has digital in it. There are some real-world experiences from places we've worked, like in Toronto, where there really hasn't been any measurable impact on traffic activity. And again, there's nothing that's really scientific. There's been a number of billboard studies, as you know, but, we're talking about the maximum square footage on one of our displays would be 24 square feet, where the smallest billboard is 672 square feet. So, it's a major difference in terms of the impact, the light of the billboard, and as you stated, we're going to have flips in digital, but we're not going to have the types of motion that you see in a lot of the billboards. It's no motion and no sound.
And also the illumination nowadays, it's actually automatically adjusted to be almost 0.003% of the ambient area. So it's not the eye blurring what you see. However, to Scenic LA and others, that I will further invest in conducting our independent review to evaluating this. But the technology on what other cities have used is not the concern that we heard because of these big billboards. This is different. This is very specific, static-like. This is what we talked about. But at the end of the day, it's all specific to the guidance from council once we present that information to council as to the technology, the potential benefits and impacts, and also where you're going to deploy this. We're not going to have digital in every place in this city. And I respect there is some communities that have their own unique characteristics that they want to protect. And I applaud that and I respect that. None of us are going to intrude on the communities' specific needs and characteristics. But there's other communities that have not been able to speak here today, have not been able to make that because they're working, they're doing something else. And I want to make sure that we don't forget there's others that want this. And I think we spoke about how, what you talked about is minority communities across the city that work and they don't have access probably to a smartphone and they want to be able to know how to navigate, how to get the next bus, how to connect. Is available. So we will address the issue of traffic, impact and safety, but I also want to bring the big picture where we're going to invest around these transit shelters and the community to make sure that we're doing crosswalks, access ramps, safe sidewalks that makes it accessible and safe. Somebody like Ron, because I was touched when I saw that picture. So I told the staff, we should go ahead of it and start working on making it safe. You know how it means to me. Angeles is safe and accessible for everyone. And I really am proud that we're able to do that. And that's something we do across the city. But this program will allow us to kind of escalate that and even go to different levels to make our streets safe in these tough times, especially in these tough times. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dale. That's good clarity also on both sides. So I appreciate that. Having you said that, will this RFP, and I apologize if it is on the RFP, will this RFP have an assessment of places like Ron's throughout the city that you will now put in new bus shelters?
Let me ask Lance to talk about the analysis that was done. There's an ongoing process, but let me talk about the analysis on ridership and shade and heat and exposure. Go ahead, Lance.
Sure. Good morning, Lance Oishi with Street Services. One of the tools that we have available to us today that we didn't have available to us 20 years ago was a GIS mapping system. And going back to when we were trying to extend our current program, we started the process of developing GIS-based maps that were able to reflect where riderships were at, where all our bus stops were at, first of all, which was a task in and of itself, but where all our transit furniture assets are located at. And where we have things like high heat, where we have equity-focused communities that are, absent of a lot of city facilities and services. And so we're able to overlay those onto a single map and use those maps to help us identify exactly which locations we want to be placing these structures at. And in fact, that is part of the process that we talked about as far as refining the site approval process and trying to roll out the program faster. And so we will, as a part of this process, our plan moving forward is to utilize that data-driven information to determine where we want to put shelters at, and move those locations to our elected officials, our decision makers, allow them to say yes, move forward with those locations, or no, we prefer to see a shelter here. And again, it's going to be data-driven, whereas 20 years ago we weren't able to do that. So I think that it's a leap forward tremendously for us technologically, and I think it's going to result in a lot better service to our constituents.
But we have the analysis that was done to show the locations that have high transit users and need for shade, and overlay that and across the communities and neighborhoods across the city. So we have that information available, and that's going to drive us in moving forward.
Perfect, great. Thank you for that clarity. I do have more, but I'm going to yield my time for my colleagues. The last thing, and I know this might not be, I understand that today we're approving just the request for the proposal, where that's all we're doing. We're not approving projects or sites or anything like that. I perfectly clear on that. However, I know that the process is usually it is a process that we go with the lowest bidder most of the time. Is this the process for this as well? Just because it's such a sensitive topic and in such a sense where it's very out in the public. Is this the process that this RFP is going to go through? We're going to go through the lowest bidder?
It's the request for proposal process is not. There's actually the criteria that we set forth as part of the board report and the RFP is based on a six element criteria. The first one is qualifications. Second is approach and methodology, program build out and refresh plans, design, sustainability, and innovative approaches. Cost is important, but when you look at a RFP review process, you put all that together. What you're looking for is the most responsive proposal that can meet all these requirements and give you what the city needs and outlined in these six criteria.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Del. I appreciate the clarification. I hope that clears a lot of the anxiety that's out there or the unclearness that's out there for a lot of folks. So thank you for that. Thank you, President Good. That's all for me for now.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. President Pro Tem Davis, you have some questions or comments? You're muted, Dr. Davis.
Okay, thank you so much, Adele, for the report. I agree with you in terms of, as we look at infrastructure, all of our infrastructure has to be, to the extent that our resources will allow us to, be up to date, be able to accommodate a growing economy that we serve, and certainly street furniture, and also as we look at ways in which we communicate with our public, we want to the degree that it's safe, to be able to do that in a way that's state of the art and reasonable. In terms of some of the studies on billboards, there are some studies out. There are some hypotheses that are out, but many of the studies haven't had the kind of wherewithal and big enough sample sizes in which we can say that these are reliable and valid studies. In other words, that these studies are such that we can't, at this point in time, be able to do that sample and test again and come back with the same results. That has a lot to do with validity in a study and reliability in a study. But there are studies that are out that are suggesting things that are of concern for some of the constituents, but yet at the same time, as I said, when we look at digital billboards, do they in fact have negative consequences on perceived workloads? Do we have digital billboards that lead to visual distractions? Should digital billboards in fact be placed at a certain eye level in terms of what negative impact, if any, it will have on that? We heard one of our constituents speak on that. But all of that withstanding, I think that we're a big city, I always tell people we're not Hooterville, we're Los Angeles, but we want to be safe, and I know that that is always your top priority as one of the leaders of the Department of Public Works. Basically, in summary, it is not what we're doing. We are doing what we need to do. We're meeting the challenges we have to meet. But I think it is a question for me as a board member, how are we doing what we need to do? So that leads me to my questions. What did we do in terms of sharing this plan with our council offices? What did the council offices do in terms of sharing with our neighborhood associations?
So, thank you, Dr. Davis. Appreciate the comment. I've kind of highlighted the outreach that we have done and the deliberation that have happened throughout the process. This is something that we've been deliberating for over 3 years, almost 2 years on my watch. myself, and I think we have done a lot of work. We have Stakeholder Advisory Council. The last discussion we had with the Stakeholder Advisory Council was in CD8 the last time in I believe February of this year, to really get input. It's two things that we're dealing with. One is the specifics of the program and the parameters that will still be informed by what we receive in the proposals. And in the meantime, we're going to continue reaching out as we've started here today, and continue reaching out to neighborhood councils to get input. But we will present policy decisions and recommendations before the policy makers to what I call the bookends of the program and the elements of the program. And we will do that, and that's while the RFP is being gathered. And we will reach out and work with the neighborhood councils and the community groups and continue and actually deliberately continue that process. Once the program and the council and the policymakers and the mayor and your board agree to the program, we will develop the implementation plans. And those implementation plans, and my intention is to have that very transparent and clear, to know where our shelters going, when, and what kind of shelter they're gonna expect in that area. That will be developed as part of an annual program that we will share with our council offices, with our community groups. It'll be available for anyone to learn. And I had that discussion with council offices, because it can be approval on one-off. It has to be a programmatic process. And I committed to doing that. But I want to say is we want to start, what I heard today, what I heard last week, that we didn't reach everyone. And I acknowledge, not saying here to give excuses. Not everyone has been heard, and today was the start, and I want to continue that process. But the RFP is just the information. Let's see what technology looks like. Let's figure out how we can craft the bookends, that the policy, yourself, council, and mayor, with input from the public. Then you can drive us. And if the decision is whatever decision, we move forward and develop. Nobody driving this. This is driven by the interest of the city. It's not the interest of anybody outside. And I'm very clear on this. This is my priority, and my number one priority is serving our constituents, our residents, and this is who I work for, who I serve.
Well, I believe that there are neighborhoods that have their own characteristic, that have their own values, that have their own desires, and have their own needs. And so therefore, I believe that there are some neighborhoods who will want to use digital in the appropriate places that they designate. But again, I just think that if we can lay out our proposal in terms of things that are developing, and you did say that we have done that, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do want to make this point. I think that if we lay out our proposal in ways with, of course, the council office, that lets people know in the different neighborhood associations, I don't know if we do it in the empowerment congresses, or wherever you and the council decide that we should do it. Nobody will agree with anything that we have 1,000% in a city of 4 million people. And so there is no question that there are some neighborhoods who would want this. And again, as I said, and I will share with you, some of the studies that have been done, they are inconclusive studies, some of them, because the sample size wasn't big enough. One study had 40 people. Well, just those 40 people in that research is not conclusive. But what we do know that there are some neighborhoods who can wisely choose digital billboards. We do know that it will be attractive for some neighborhoods. We're not saying for every neighborhood, but we're saying for some. We're a city, we're a diverse city. Our cities have different stakeholders. People have different desires and different needs. But my bottom line is this. If we can present our proposal to these neighborhoods, and if our council members can share it in ways that they know their district best, to the public in a reasonable way. We can't go to every house and make a presentation in every living room, and I wouldn't even expect you to do that. But what I'm saying is that if we can continue to do this outreach in terms of sharing with individuals how the city wants to move forward in accommodating proposals for billboards, neighborhoods can decide with their council offices who gets to get them, who wants it, and that kind of thing. I will just conclude by saying, when we are able to do an organized program in that way, I think we will have less pushback, if you will. Not that everybody's going to agree with us, but I think that we'll have less pushback when we can get a more active support base from our policymakers in rolling this thing out. So thank you so much, Mr. President. That's my feedback on this.
I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Davis. Commissioner Closa.
Thank you, President Good, for facilitating. Just want to first start out and thank all the speakers during public comment and everybody who took time out of their busy schedules to send us an email about this, give your input. That's something that's, of course, really important to everyone at the board. I know that's something that's, of course, very important to Mr. Haj Khalil and his team at Street LA. You know, as soon as they heard about feedback coming in from the community, they didn't hesitate to meet with you directly, and that's something I really applaud them for, is that, they're more than willing and more than happy to meet, to talk through issues and figure out a compromise about how best to move forward. I also, want to thank the entire Streets LA team for working on this. I know this is not tough to do, or that this is something that's incredibly tough to do right now, that you guys are experiencing a lot of your team on disaster service worker work, helping with the COVID-19 crisis. You guys have had a number of staff retiring, and so you guys are working all of this and more during a really difficult time for the city as a whole. So thank you, Mr. Haj Khalil, and your entire team for really moving this forward. I think I'll make a few comments, and then I'll maybe ask just a few follow-up questions. One of the things that I, really see in this item before us is that this is arguably better than our existing program. Our existing program is something that is 20 years old. This is a program where I see opportunity and possibility for a clear process to get public feedback, more outreach, and really more for the community in a number of ways. There's some specific elements here that I also think are going to be really important, since we don't know when the end of COVID-19 will be. We don't know if we're going to be in this situation a year from now, 2 years from now, or what else lies ahead. One of the parts that I thought was really important that I wanted to spend a little bit of time on was the ability to really have a much more robust public information campaign. If we think of our bus shelter system in the city, it's really one of our, robust systems that, crosses the paths of all communities, all income levels across the city, and that there is a huge opportunity here to share public messaging, especially around public health during COVID-19 under this new program. One of the things that I also really care about, that I think there's an opportunity here for too, is really to elevate the access to a lot of communities that don't traditionally get these type of messages in their language, that we would be able to do in an unprecedented way under this new program, that I do really, really appreciate. And so maybe, Mr. Haj Khalil, I can just kind of just briefly ask you to explain, like, what are the opportunities here, and I know you kind of touched on it, about how do we really integrate this if we move forward? How do we really tap into this resource to really get the information out there to the community? And this could even be potentially a way that I envision as a way to even notify neighborhood councils in the communities of these very types of things, right? Because that's something that we hear about all the time at the board that, I know I always follow up on, and, a lot of the commissioners follow up on, is like, how do we better communicate with our neighborhood councils? How do we better communicate with the people that we don't get to hear about? What is the equalizer? So if I can just briefly ask you to maybe elaborate on that a little bit more.
Sure, and thank you for really being eloquent about putting really it's how we need to elevate the service to our community at all levels, especially communities that really are thirsty and need this. So I'll just tell you, just the first thing is being able to have digital gives you the ability to get information to that system at the transit shelter, to one under emergency conditions or anything that we need to message to the public, we can quickly get that information out, see it. And also we can tailor it to the languages, and that gives us a little more flexibility to get different languages out there. That message is clear. When you look at the inside is the information on wayfinding, the information on job opportunities in that community, shelters in the community. You can actually, if you don't have a phone, you should be able to go to one of those smart shelters and get information. Also for our businesses, local businesses, being able to have somebody that doesn't know the neighborhood in Chinatown or Koreatown or anywhere in the city, you should be able to go to that location and put restaurants, and you should be able to know the restaurants in the area that you can go to. To me, and local businesses, to me, that's going to change the game. It's going to change the ability and the accessibility of people. I think this is having digital. You can upgrade as technology becomes better. This is a long-term program. And what happened to us the last 20 years, we were stuck in 20-year-old technology and never moved. Now with this one, I think we'll be able to be so adaptable, so agile that we and adapt and address and be very responsive to the needs of the businesses, the communities, the residents in each of the neighborhoods. So I think to me it's basic information, PSA, emergency management information, but also supporting local community businesses, notices. If you want to know your community, you can click on a button and you can see that in any language you want. Imagine all these things that are possible for us to really now double and triple accessibility to people and make sure information is being available. And not everyone has access to computers. Not everyone has access to a smartphone. And we want to be able to have that information available and promote local neighborhoods, local businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Hajkhalil. And if I could just kind of pick out one thing there, is the current process, just from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, so for us to get out our public message onto a bus shelter, we would, go through the process and have to actually physically print out the message and then have a contractor or a Streets LA then go install it on each individual bus shelter. Is that correct? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, let me ask Lance to help me. Lance is expert. He's been doing it for 20 years. He doesn't look old, but he's actually... Go ahead, Lance. Help elaborate more.
You're absolutely right, Commissioner. Basically, right now, to put a PSA out there, we need to have a printed poster up. And that's one of the great things about this potential to have these digital panels out there is that all we need is the artwork. We don't have to go through the printing process. And the printing process is actually quite cost prohibitive for say a neighborhood council, if they want to put a PSA out about an upcoming event, about neighborhood elections, let's say. The cost of a poster may run anywhere from $100 to $200 per location. So if you want to put multiple PSAs up there, there's a cost involved that we won't have to incur now with the capacity to have these digital panels out there. And so, and the artwork can be easily changed to convert to different languages as well. And so we can also reach out to people in their native tongue as well. And so I think that provides a lot more flexibility and adaptability moving forward.
If I could just add on to that too, the entire system is managed by what's known as a content management system. And the city will have access to that system. So if we had a situation like we did after 2001, where we had to evacuate parts of the city, that information can be put up immediately, as would be silver alerts and amber alerts and those types of things. Dealing with, the different diversity in the city of Los Angeles, the messaging using that content management system can be in Armenian in the Valley. It could be Chinese in Chinatown. It could be Japanese in Little Tokyo. We can control the entire system and put the correct language into that particular neighborhood that the people speak in that particular neighborhood. So as Adele mentioned, the ability with digital is far-reaching, and it has a utility that we didn't have 5 or 10 years ago. Plus, as Lance mentioned, it's a lot more sustainable. A lot of the material in advertising, out-of-home advertising, is on polyvinyl chloride material, and it's very expensive, and it doesn't deteriorate over time. It's something that gets stuck in landfills, or it has to be disposed of differently, so it's very expensive. And again, it's not sustainable. It doesn't go along with the city's efforts with the new green plan to be resilient.
Great, thank you for sharing that. It sounds like there's a lot of environmental benefits to, this updated program. I definitely hear and understand the concerns that were shared by our callers, but also know that we have a lot of things to balance here. So with the environmental benefits, I do think that was something positive that wasn't previously mentioned. And then specifically on the access piece, something that I think would be great to see is even what a set-aside program looks like. For instance, for businesses that, it would have been cost prohibitive to, do a bus shelter ad in this current program because it is so expensive. How do we really make sure that these small businesses are able to access and get their messages out in a new program? And also for neighborhood councils and community organizations, how are we able to really give them access to tap into this program so that they understand what the benefits could be? I think that's something that I would personally like to see, because this information sharing and having this sustained network is going to be really critical to us moving forward, both during COVID and beyond COVID. And let me just see here what other questions I have for this new model. One of the things too that we haven't touched on, but I did just want to briefly ask about, was obviously, the funding model. What ways, are these monies used in this existing program, and is any of it actually reinvested back in the community? How is it used by the council office? And I don't know if you have any specific examples you can share about ways in which it might have benefited the community.
I mean, right now from the existing program,
right?
What happens is some of the money goes to the council offices and some money goes to the general fund. And the council offices usually, in many cases, for example, they divert that money for either tree planting, sidewalk repair, any of the high priorities for that community neighborhood. There'll be some discussion as we are moving forward for the next program that we maintain that kind of level, but really take the additional revenue that's created and reinvesting it back in making the area around these shelters and enhance crosswalks, access ramps, and all that. That's something we heard from Invest in Place, many of the advocates, clearly, and we want to continue that dialogue. It's all a decision by the policymakers, but we want to provide it from what we have today, but build on it to do more. So, but that's all is subject to the policymakers and what they direct us to do. But I propose, and based on what we heard from many folks, we want to reinvest back into our communities to make it better and be able, especially with the challenge on the funding, especially when it comes to trees, sidewalks, access ramps, crosswalks, safety features. We want to reinvest back to make the community and the areas safer.
Thank you, Mr. Hajj-Khalil. And
can I answer one of your other questions about local merchant participation in this? And I don't want to get down in the weeds and get too technical, but with digital in other cities, we have something called the demand side platform. So that if I run a small shop and let's say I'm in Highland Park and I want to advertise on the devices that are in my neighborhood, you could go online and buy that space under the technology that we're proposing to do. So, you know, it will allow a very, very small merchant to buy space on the inventory that's close to their shop, their restaurant, or whatever. And that is, you know, how the technology is going. It's getting very grassroots, but it's really, you know, getting more personalized and allowing really local advertising.
Very good, John.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. I don't think I have any further questions, President Good. I appreciate Streets LA for kind of reiterating, you know, their goals, the opportunity here at the table. And again, just want to restate that, you know, moving forward with this just allows us to receive proposals. I know that's been stated already, but wanted to repeat it again. And that there's lots of opportunity ahead for public comment because everyone's feedback has been incredibly valuable. And the goal here is to come up with a program that everyone can be proud of and that there's so many interests here to balance. But that, you know, what we have before us, colleagues, I think is arguably, you know, better than a 20-year-old outdated program. And it also allows us to rethink the possibility of what it means to have a bus shelter program. You know, just like we've rethought what it means to have a street light. You know, we've totally flipped this on its head, and we are now, you know, using a street light as a charging station. You know, we are now attaching it to shade structures. And so there's so many ways in which I think Public Works in the city of LA is really, you know, pushing the ball forward on this. And I see a tremendous amount of opportunity here when done the right way with even more public input. So I will just conclude there and thank Streets LA and Mr. Hajj-Khalil for your commitment to achieving that.
Thank you, Commissioner Close-Up. Appreciate that. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. And thanks. I really appreciate all the questions that my colleagues asked. I hope that it gives more context for our listeners. But I too wanted to thank just the many folks that participated today and that took the time to give us a call and to share their thoughts. I think that you know, the board must have received, I think, well over 150 emails. I read through all of them, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much for those. I did want to just delve just a little deeper in if our director could either expand on this or maybe Lance or our other experts, just so that we can go through a little bit on the finance, or if you can just shed some light on it. It sounds to me, although it's an RFP, RFP, there's a lot of similarities to like P3s, public-private partnerships. If you can just go through something like that, I really like the idea of reinvesting this money back into the program. It sounds self-sustaining, and it's cost recovery. And, maybe that isn't as important to the public, but I think that really helps in terms of, stewardship and maintenance. So if you could just go through that for just really quick.
So let me ask either Lance or John if you want to have a chat. What you said is clearly the revenue from the advertising. We're hoping to increase that so we can invest back and in the community in making these shelters safe. Maintenance is critical element of it. Expanding public health elements of it will be critical. But some of the models we're looking at is whether we do a share in the capital investment or not based on the revenue we'll get, whether the city and the contractor, there's an option for operation, there's the option for 50-50 share or 100% share where the city invests 100%. All that is on the table. We want to see, as have directed us in the business models, to go out and get that information. So we are hoping to really turn this over to realizing really what's best for our residents and what's best for the city. But I wanted to see if John or Lance can add more to the question here.
Yes, thanks, Adele. And Commissioner, we, as Adele mentioned, we looked at all the different cities, these big cities, and who's been most successful in rolling out a program, not only from a service perspective, but also in a financial perspective. And we're really focused in on London because that is the most successful street furniture program in the world. The city generates about $100 million, 100 million pounds, a year in London. And they participate in capital, but as a result of their participation in the capital expense, they command a 70% share of the gross revenues. So the model is changed from what we're doing today. And frankly, in the RFI sessions we had with the industry, that concept was very, very well received by the industry as something the industry would favor. But that comes with a lot of control over the assets to make sure they're managed to their useful lives. And we've already discussed the asset management program about connecting that to what Streets LA already has, because there'll be city assets. So, the ability to change the model changes the revenue share to the benefit of the city. So as Adele mentioned, you'll have more money to reinvest to possibly expand the program, but more importantly, to maintain the assets that are out there so they're attractive to transit users and pedestrians.
Thank you for that. I wanted to now follow up because that just sheds a little bit of light. I just wanted to follow up on the existing contract that we have and just kind of do a comparison in terms of what did we get out of the existing contract and what did we learn out of the existing contract. And then we've heard just through your presentation of some of the things that will be done differently. But if you can shed some light on that, that would be helpful.
Maybe I can talk about that a little bit, if you're okay with that, Adele.
Yeah, please.
So our existing program is actually a pretty traditional model from a programmatic perspective, wherein the existing contractor, pays for everything. Basically, they pay for the capital cost to build the furniture, install it, maintain it. They administer the advertising component on our behalf, and then we get a revenue share out of that. And right now, with the contractor actually carrying the burden and the risk for all that capital expenditure, we see a 20% return, or we receive a 20% share of their gross revenue receipts. And we just heard John kind of mention London being the flip of that, where London is actually doing a lot of the capital expenditure. They take that risk upon themselves, and they are able to realize 70% of the gross revenue receipts as far as revenue intake. And so we see that as a tremendous benefit and a potential for us to pursue. I just want to kind of point out that the that's another flexibility component of the RFP as well, is the financing part. But going back to your question about the existing program, one of the things that we learned about our existing program is that site approval process that was included as part of the program was very, very cumbersome. And actually, if anybody could point a finger at why the program never developed the way it was, it's because of that site approval process. And it proved too lengthy, too cumbersome basically overall, with having 8 departments and the council offices and everybody else have to weigh in on each and every site. And again, by having the tools of the GIS mapping system, we are now able to, instead of relying upon a contractor to pick and select locations where furniture should go, we have the ability now to direct the contractor where we want to be able to put furniture. And in that sense, we think that we're going to be able to reach more people and to provide greater equity throughout the program, and to, again, be a better service provider overall. And so those are going to be major changes moving forward if we can implement those.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's just, it speaks to the equity issue a lot because we don't have bus shelters everywhere. And I think that we're going into this to make the experience for the bus users that much better, coupling it with all the shade and all the cooling efforts that we have going on with our Cool Streets program. And then just, another piece I wanted to talk about is just this outreach to various communities in Los Angeles, and just ask that we do just a little bit more outreach, not a little bit more, but just, work with our neighborhood councils and with other groups as well, just to be able to, get the word out and honestly just work with groups that have that expertise. Obviously I would do a lot of nonprofit work with Mujeres de la Tierra, and, we do a lot of outreach and work with other groups in the Northeast LA area. I just use them as an example. By no way am I pumping them at all. But just know that, there are many groups out there that can reach, bus users, parents and folks that go to, work and, frankly, that go to the West Side, just to be able to, clean houses and, work the restaurant industry, all that effort. So just, speaking to that piece so that we could reach as many communities as possible.
And we are actually underway right now. I just saw my email. We have next week, so I'm going to be a busy person along with my team, going to different neighborhood councils, coalitions, all that. So yes, we heard you. We're on it.
That is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Villegas. Thank you, colleagues. I'm going to attempt to make this a bit of a speed round, although I do have questions just out of interest for everybody's time. I too would echo my gratitude to the community members from the west side of the valley, not only engaging us over the course of the past couple of weeks, but joining us here today in the middle of Tuesday morning. Very much appreciated, and the input is exceedingly meaningful and critical and taken and received. I think it's actually gratifying to see this level of engagement, and including, by the way, the engagement that Streets LA has done up to this point. And the commitment to doing the continued engagement. This is big. this is a potential massive undertaking, but I want to actually underscore the word potential. And for me, it's very important to remember the fact that we are not voting today on a program. We're not voting on a contract. We're not voting on a proposal. We're voting on a request for proposals. We're voting on the initiation of a process rather than the conclusion of a process. And I think that that's a very critical thing to consider, and I'll come back to that as well. For my own edification, I do want to just rewind for 2 seconds. In quick summary, please remind me, Mr. Hashkalil and Streets LA, what were the challenges with performance on the previous contract?
I mean, a lot of things. One is, as Lance mentioned, is the approval process and the one-off approval. So when you have to approve each shelter one at a time, I mean, it's not what I thought is a comprehensive programmatic effort. The other one is risk. The risk of investing in something that you're not sure is going to pay back the money. So, 10 years before the end of the program, it was hard for the company to invest into street furniture because they didn't see that return on the investment. But also, I think it's for me, we did not deliver as the contractor did not, or the contractor did not deliver the number of shelters that we needed. And that was for me the biggest issue that I struggled with, is the need. There was only 600 plus shelters added throughout the program. And the goal was to add more. And I didn't see that increase in number of shelters as people were crying and calling for shade and shelters. I just didn't see that. However, also, we're entitled as a city to have a flexible program. I think the program and the contract was so rigid, it didn't allow the flexibility to adjust as technology. When you have a long-term, it has to be a partnership more than a regular contract. It's a collaboration that you need to allow for upgrades and enhancements. I didn't see that in the existing contract. Exclusivity was a huge obstacle. Exclusivity in the existing contract that nobody else in the city is on their program. So the rideshare program could not really advertise on rideshare. A obstacle more than a help. And our goal now is to create a coordinated advertising program that can serve all users in a coordinated way, but provide that agility and flexibility. And at the end is making sure that the city residents and ratepayers get their fair share of revenue to invest back into the community. And that for me was also another important element. So in a nutshell, it's just making sure we have a agile, modern system that can be flexible, but also giving back to the community what we believe are our fair share.
So then it's fair to say that on a couple of fronts. Well, first of all, that contract was executed in 2000, right? Presumptively, negotiations started in 1999, contemplation of the contract started in 1998. That's the amount of years that I'm not even sure I can recollect. I'm not even sure where I was in 1998, to be crystal clear. So then we ended up with a contract, the existing program, neither A, satisfied in terms of outcomes, or B, certainly in the estimation of Streets LA, in terms of potential, right? And so it satisfied neither in a modern era or in light of increasingly articulated evolving goals. Is that fair to say, Mr. Rushkalil?
That's very fair to say, yes.
So then based on that, and that contract set to expire December 31, 2021.
That's correct.
So in your estimation, that contract being extended was not necessarily a logical approach, given, again, the challenge of outcomes and the potential of the contract. So then council instructed you, nonetheless, given the enormity of this endeavor, to go back to the existing contract and really just take a great, hard, comprehensive shot at coming to terms where an extension might actually work and help us to meet those goals.
That's correct.
You did that?
Yes.
And the outcomes, again, were ultimately unsatisfactory relative to the goals that we know that we're looking for in the program.
That's correct.
So then council instructed you to do an RFI, a process in which you solicited input from people within the industry about best practices, about structure, et cetera, and to sort of alert the business community that this is a potential next, that a RFP could be a next potential step, and to sort of buckle up, right, and potentially get ready for that.
That's correct.
That RFI, that then led to council telling Streets LA, authorizing Streets LA on a unanimous vote in fall of 2019 to construct and move forward with an RFP, again on a contract that will expire on December 31, 2021, correct?
Correct, sir.
So, given that, what happens if the Board of Public Works does not authorize this RFP today, from a timing perspective relative to the termination of that, or the expiration of the contract?
So that would clearly delay the receipt of proposals and the review and development of a contract for council and mayor consideration and approval to have a contract in place come January 1st, 2022. So there is a risk at hand, is the maintenance of the furniture, upkeep of the furniture, many things that we are critical to us, and that would delay that and really create a void in service that we don't want to have.
Okay. I want to pivot really quickly then. So, in terms of the actual RFP, I want to go to the question of sort of implementation. If we approve the RFP and then you go into a process, there will be multiple iterations of approval on any policy elements, correct? I mean, and I know we've touched on this, but I just want to re-stress that. In other words, if a council office is like, this absolutely is not a place where digital advertising should happen, is it likely that that's going to happen?
So exactly, it will be decided by the policymakers.
And then in terms of outreach, some not insignificant outreach has been done thus far. I know personally, I saw you at the Neighborhood Congress talking about this at least last year, I believe the year before. And then you are very committed to doing an exhaustive road show over the next, I don't know, 13 months?
Yeah.
I believe our colleagues, or actually the city council and council member Bob Blumenfeld, who is, as everyone knows, the chair of the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee for the city council, is introducing a motion today instructing Streets LA to engage in a very aggressive and continued and corollary or concurrent outreach process as the RFP is being delivered. I want to recognize that and really express our appreciation on that front. And I think that that's going to be important. I'll come back to that as well. Again, bear with me. I'm going to pivot again. Broad scope, the goals for the program. 3,000 shelters, right? We have, what, 1887 right now?
About 1887, 10 years old. The majority of them is 10 to 20 years old, yes.
Okay. 75% transit rider accessibility to shelters in each council district, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Simply put, I'm not an economist, but can we reach those goals as a city without advertising being an element of this program?
It'll be very difficult.
How about I put another spin on that? Can we reach these goals without advertising being a part of it, without a not insignificant drain on the general fund?
It's going to be difficult to drain. It's going to be drained on the city resources, yes, and funding.
Okay. Couple other key points that I think the community has very, keenly and appropriately zeroed in on data protection. I know we've talked about it a little bit. I just want to hit on it again. I've read the RFP. I'm cognizant of where, but I just want reiteration. I'm assuming that Streets LA, in its assessment of any sort of proposals on this, will be laser beam focused on what kind of data protection program or data protection is involved in any sort of proposal. And in fact, you're not necessarily going to give them the keys to that anyway, right?
So it's in the RFP, we're very clear that they cannot commercialize that data. They cannot be selling information about people. However, there'll be an opportunity for a anonymous, non-customized collection of information to help enhance the services. So knowing how many people go through the transit shelter to ensure the trash is picked up appropriately, if there is an enhancement of maintenance because we have too many people coming in, if it needs an upgrade of the shelter to create a larger shelter based on the number of people. There's a lot of things. However, we are clearly outlined in the RFP that the data and the information is controlled and owned by the city and will be subject to the California Consumer Privacy Act, the AB 375, California Prop 24, and the city's Digital Code of Ethics. And we're working with our ITA department here to there's a city consistency. That data collection and privacy is a city priority, and the city ITA team is helping, guiding us. So we're not gonna compromise anybody's data because I'm concerned about it if I'm gonna have somebody take my data. But I wanna make sure it's not any commercialization. That was clearly put in the RFP, and we will ensure that that is enforced and taken care of.
That's good to hear. And then on wayfinding, a number of folks brought up wayfinding, I think CCA and several folks in the business community. I'm aware of the fact that a smattering of communities in the city actually have been on their own volition, sort of like initiating wayfinding programs. Some are sort of nascent, some have been around for a long time. I think it's, I guess, more of a comment than a question because I think you've answered this and it's certainly articulated in the RFP, but I would encourage, proposers' willingness and amenability to working with those communities and those programs to be something that Streets LA take into high consideration, because what we don't need is sort of like the overkill of stuff that's not working in conjunction.
Yeah, the coordinated program and coordinated approach is going to be the highlight of this program, is make inclusive, not exclusive, but inclusive, but then coordinated. That's going to be the theme, and that's what my team is working very hard on making that happen. So, Department of Conventions and Tourism, CCA, and others across the city, the harbor, etc., to make sure that we're all coordinated.
And coordinating on maintenance, etc., as well, correct?
Sure. I mean, that's a priority for us.
Critical. Okay. So Look, colleagues, I think that, this endeavor is uniquely appropriate for this RFP as a starting point. This is, to say the very least, a dynamic and fluid industry. We're literally operating under a contract that is a virtual typewriter relative to the landscape that we live in today. And it also, by the way, expires on December 31, 2021. So we have the opportunity with an RFP to say, here's a not blank, but in fact, hyper complicated tapestry. Give us your best shot. And then what I read in the RFP is actually built-in opportunities for everyone, including the community, to actually see in very concrete and tangible ways what's being proposed, right down to pilots on the street, right? But we also have guardrails, right? We know for a fact that no program is going to be approved without an enormous amount of process, not only with this board, but also with the city council through the committee process, through the council, through an absolutely relentless community outreach process. And again, I want to stress that Councilmember Blumenfeld, also Councilmember Bonner, are jointly introducing a motion today calling for continued outreach and a continued outreach process. I don't want to do dueling banjo motions, but I'm going to build on or piggyback on that motion and commit to and in fact solicit the cooperation and collaboration with council in that process between us and them. But then also specifically direct Streets LA to start tomorrow with a absolute roadshow, lots of fun, and I mean that because I think this will be a very exciting and dynamic process to match the dynamic process of this RFP to really make this a city endeavor, because that's what this is. Everyone in the city of Los Angeles is going to be touched by what emerges from this, and so it's incumbent upon us to make sure that all those voices are heard. And as you alluded to, Mr. Hashkhalil, that's not just the voices in any one geography. That's the voices all over. That's not just the voices that are aware of this process, but not aware of this process. And so I too, specifically and explicitly directing y'all to jump into that with all vigor and all zeal, and to incorporate that into your assessment process. So I think that with those parameters, knowing we're going to protect and ensure that data is protected and not sold, not moved off, knowing that there will be, overwhelming, even with a more expedited permit process, knowing that there will be a approval process that will literally, include everyone that weighs in. I am convinced that this is a crucial next step to getting out of the typewriter. It is a crucial first step to really building a street furniture, street amenity, street and transportation program that emerges into the next several decades. And so with that, I'm prepared to offer my support, again, conditioned on the absolute incredible outreach that I know you're committed to and knowing that you're promising.
Yeah, Mr. President, I want to just confirm that I heard the community loud and clear. I heard the speakers and I appreciate all of them. I heard the commissioners in your direction to us. We'll start today. We've started already. We have schedules already on the calendar as I spoke. We will do everything, but I want to make sure that people really recognize that this is the start of a process. This is the vehicle, not the content. Let's all focus on the content of the contract and how we're going to move forward rather than the vehicle. This is just the vehicle. I really thank you for the trust, and also holding us accountable. You're going to hold us accountable as council will hold us accountable. And I really value the trust of the community. And I want to make sure that we want to get out there and listen to all of them, talk to all of them. And I know it's not one size fits all, but we want to listen. We want to engage everyone. And it's going to be I'm hoping, a great outcome for all of us, for the future of this great city, a future based on creating a safer place for us to enjoy our city, a city that we can all be proud of, while protect the community culture and the community specifics that have been put in place. We will work with every community to ensure that this is not something that will intrude on them, but rather improve the community. So I would ask them to the time, the effort. We will do what needs to be done. We hear you, and I want to thank them for kind of shy away from the risk. And I want to thank you for, I want to just make sure, echo that I listen and I hear you and I hear your direction and what we need to do.
Thank you, Adele. And you did just remind me of one thing. I think another unsolicited piece of counsel towards that process and that outreach is to really communicate and engage constituents in understanding the holistic process of this. What strikes me about this, there are certain endeavors like this, unique from, say, sort of construction mega projects that we work on, that are puzzles. Certainly the financial modeling requires the puzzle be put together, right? I mean, just the fact that we're talking about going from what was delivered, which was 1,887 shelters, to 3,000. Again, I'm neither an economist or a mathematician, but I think that that's an increase of almost 2/3. Alone, that is less than 2/3. It's about 1/3. That's right. So I told you, I warned you. But that is alone a incredible undertaking, and it's incomprehensible to me how that works, which, by the way, is utterly crucial. And I know that was priority number one for council, because that is a straight-up equity issue. That is an equity issue. We have heat islands all across this city where elderly folks, disabled folks, people of color are waiting for public transit, and they're doing so, and they're boiling. And so it is inconceivable that we could actually be able to hit that goal without also having financial goals. And so I think it's really crucial to paint the picture in a very holistic way, because any single piece of this alone takes us down a rabbit hole. And it's really critical that folks understand the meta and the macro on this, along with the different elements of the micro. So thank you, Adele. Thank you, all of Streets LA, Martin, Elise, Audrey, Lance, and the Govas duo for being here to walk through all of this. Thank you very much for the community. Fred,
and acknowledge Fred and Al Bazzi, who's been part of the team. I failed to acknowledge him earlier.
No, I did. I also, Fred, Al Bazzi, thank you all very much. Colleagues, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move. I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion to approve authority to release this RFP from Commissioner Villegas, with a second from Vice President Garcia. Do I have any objections or questions? President Pro Tem Davis? You're muted, sir.
No objections from me.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Colosa?
No objections, thank you.
All right, hearing no objections, the item is approved forthwith. And I like the zeal, Adele. Don't wait till tomorrow. Let's get started today. Thank you all very much. And have great Thanksgivings. Really appreciate it. All right, with that, Mr. Knight, is the deck cleared?
Yes, it is, President.
All right, thank you all. Listen, everybody, these are profoundly challenging times, sometimes desperate times and painful times, and unprecedented times. I mean, none of us have ever been through most of what we've gone through over the last year. I am personally thankful for my colleagues, the work of this board, the work of this department, the work of everybody here. And I wish you all a safe, first and foremost, a safe second, a safe third, and then fourth, a really enjoyable and restful Thanksgiving. Thank you all for everything you do.
Thank you.
And this meeting is adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all.
All righty.
Thanks, y'all.